The cutthroat corporate world sets the opening scene, where a suit-wearing employee walks down the halls. With 10 steps, Yoon Do-kyung reflects that his time at the company is way too short to be dealing with these kinds of demands. Stopping in front of the director's office, he knocks and instantly gets the green light to go in. As soon as he steps into the fancy office, the young guy politely asks if the boss had called for him. The higher-up, who is busy staring at the city skyline with his back turned, slowly pivots to face him. Scanning the paperwork in his hands, the man lets out a focused hum at the data. Then he straight up asks if Yoon's choice was based solely on the situation at that exact moment. Without missing a beat, the employee nods, defending that all the evidence pointed to a simple human typo in the market. Pleased with the logic, the boss notes that the rookie's read on the situation was completely spot on. But the vibe shifts when the superior drops that he needs to ask the million-dollar question. He presses on, asking what the fallout would be if Yoon messed up, considering the client would take a total loss. With a dead serious face, the boss wants to know exactly how the employee would handle that kind of disaster. Frozen in the middle of the room, Yoon thinks about the industry's classic excuse of blaming the investor themselves. Fully aware of how heavy the moment is, the guy gulps and decides on his answer. Tossing the company's default excuse out the window, he declares he would beg for the client's forgiveness and take full responsibility. Amused by the sheer audacity, the boss gets sarcastic, wondering how a mere junior assistant could ever handle a mess like that. Yoon takes the pressure in silence, fully getting how brutal the corporate food chain really is. The financial market is basically a ruthless battlefield, where data flies around at breakneck speeds. It's in this wild ocean of numbers and swings that real fortunes are made or totally wrecked in a fraction of a second. But our MC's daily grind is way more humble, working strictly at the front desk of Yuseong Investments. 1 month ago, the day-to-day at the market's third-largest brokerage felt a little less chaotic. Working the desk, Yoon was trying his best to patiently explain the ins and outs of a discretionary management account. The older gentleman instantly shoots the pitch down, complaining that the profits should at least beat the market average. Agreeing with the old man, the young guy advises him to stick to individual stocks, which leaves the client pretty happy. Hyped about the tip, the client asks to buy some Murray Electronics shares to leave as a legacy for his grandson. Yoon praises the solid choice and asks for the man's bankbook, which he hands over right away. Meanwhile, the branch manager is watching this whole thing from afar, looking absolutely furious and stressed out. After wrapping up the 110 million won trade, the employee lets him know the purchase is done. The MC kindly says his goodbyes, wishing the client an awesome day as the man leaves totally satisfied. Right after finishing the job, his phone buzzes with an alert for a brand new message. Glancing at the screen, he notices it's just another annoying spam text from G1 Auto Tech and tries to ignore it. Right on cue, the branch manager marches over with a dark cloud over his head and barks his name. Demanding a private chat, the boss turns around and heads straight for his own office. Inside the room, the man takes a sip of tea and sarcastically asks how many brand new accounts Yoon opened that month. Unfazed by the heavy vibe, the employee casually replies that it was 8. The manager completely loses his marbles and yells, asking if the kid has any clue what the annual quota for new products is. Trying to defend himself, Yoon argues that he always lays out and compares the packages so clients can make the best choice. But the boss shoots him a lethal glare, totally ticked off that he's wasting time being honest. Slamming his cup on the desk, the superior screams that his only job is to shove sales down the client's throats. Hearing such a wild order, the MC lowers his head, totally let down by his boss's lack of morals. The manager stands up roaring, shouting that since he's in his second year at the company, he shouldn't have to spell out the obvious. Furiously snatching a piece of paper, the boss rubs it in his face that everyone else is opening more than 20 accounts each. As the man wipes his mouth, Yoon fires back that he can't just ignore the amount of risk people are willing to take. Sticking to his guns, the young guy states his real duty is to protect the investors, not just hit some arbitrary sales goal. Staring the manager down, the MC doubles down, saying he'd never push a mismatched product like that. The worker explains that the clients chose direct investments specifically because they wanted to score higher profits. Totally out of patience, the manager crushes the paper in his fist and tells him to shut his mouth. With absolute disrespect, the guy chucks the crumpled paper ball right at the MC. The paper bounces off Yoon's chest, while the boss mocks the fact that he got rejected by other branches. Leaning on the desk with an evil smirk, the boss says the kid knows exactly why he got those rejection letters. Poking his finger hard into the young guy's chest, he demands loyalty since they were nice enough to hire a country kid. The boss's finger presses into his employee badge as he asks what's up with this rebellious attitude. Grabbing Yoon by the tie, the manager fumes, asking if he thinks getting chewed out every morning is some kind of joke. Backed into a corner by the bullying, the MC drops his head and mumbles an apology. Not backing down an inch, the boss declares he really should be sorry for dragging the whole team down. He demands the kid at least put in the effort to justify the paycheck the company gives him every month. The suffocating vibe breaks when a knock hits the door and someone hesitantly calls for the manager. Another worker peeks into the room, letting him know that the lunch meeting with a VIP client is coming up quick. Checking his watch, the superior realizes he's running late and shoos Yoon away with a dismissive wave. Turning his head, the boss drops one final order for the kid to pump up his sales numbers before the month ends. Keeping up the submissive act just to keep things from getting worse, Yoon just mutters an agreement and dips out of the room. Out in the hall, a coworker tries to cheer him up, whispering that the manager is just impossible to deal with for everyone. Heading back to his desk, the MC tries to hide how totally drained he is by forcing a sad little smile. The very next day, the vibe at the brokerage is way more chill and noticeably emptier than usual. One of the guys stretches in his chair, looking super relieved, and makes a joke about how peaceful the morning is. Yoon gives a subtle smile and agrees, hyped that the manager went to the main headquarters, letting them finally breathe. The coworker mentions the boss went to have a sit-down with the corporate vice president to talk business. Out of nowhere, a female coworker totally shocks everyone by interrupting the chat, announcing that a stock unexpectedly hit its absolute price ceiling. When asked which asset just blasted off, she drops the name, the tiny G1 Auto Tech. Hearing the exact same name from yesterday's spam text, Yoon's eyes go wide, completely mind-blown. Wasting zero time, the guy starts typing like a madman on his computer to see if the hype is real. The chart on his screen proves the insanity, showing a red line shooting straight up into a massive spike. Clicking around frantically, the MC can't wrap his head around how this company skyrocketed out of nowhere. Soon enough, he finds the answer in an exclusive article about G1 locking down a billion-dollar deal in the electrical sector. Reading into it, Yoon notices the company is rushing to drop the press release, creating an insanely valuable window. Still frozen staring at his phone, the guy realizes yesterday's weird alert was 100% real and accurate. Suddenly, the assistant taps his shoulder and asks why he's so zoned out at his desk. Feeling the heat, the young guy scrambles for a quick excuse, praying the dude didn't read the sketchy text. But his coworker just cracks a joke, asking if he has a hot date later instead of doing his actual job. Acting on pure instinct, the MC flips his phone screen away and lies, saying he was just checking the time. The coworker laughs and says he was dead sure Yoon was reading webtoons on company time. Confused by the guy's totally chill reaction, Yoon is a bit thrown off, trying to figure out why he isn't suspicious at all. Then, the guy points at the phone and swears he can see the screen perfectly from where he's standing. The phone's display, it turns out, is literally just showing a giant clock reading 10:42. Catching the awkward vibe, the assistant asks if the kid is still bummed out about the manager's brutal roasting from yesterday. Right after that, the phone vibrates in the MC's hand again, hijacking his attention one more time. A brand new message notification pops up at the top of the screen, just waiting to be opened and bringing all the anxiety right back. Staring at the blank screen, he gets a knot in his stomach because he has absolutely no clue what's coming next. Watching the rush hour traffic after clocking out, the young guy wonders why this crazy situation keeps happening to him. After all, he was completely certain he had blocked that exact VIP service number the night before. Opening the text, he's hit with a fresh tip about Yeongnam paper and decides this level of persistence is just straight up insane. Riding the bus home, the guy keeps repeating the company's name in his head, trying to see if there's a legit way to make some cash off it. Scanning the charts on his finance app, he finds absolutely zero red flags or weird movement with the company's stock. Going by market logic, if highly classified info had leaked, the massive hedge funds would already be buying it up like crazy. Halfway home, he decides to check how other smaller companies in the exact same sector are doing. Digging into the numbers, he realizes foreign entities are buying up a massive chunk of shares from that specific group. Seeing that, the MC is suddenly hit with a major suspicion about whether this anonymous sender is actually legit. Back at Yuseon the next day, the office vibe is way more team-oriented and productive. Assistant Choi Woo-jin praises how fast he finished the analysis, even though it's technically not even his real job. Hyped about the teamwork, the senior notes they've been geeking out over the market together for almost 12 months now. Yoon shows his gratitude for the endless mentoring and admits his analytical chops have leveled up big time thanks to their duo. Letting out a frustrated sigh about corporate rules, the guy complains that keeping someone this talented stuck at the front desk is a massive waste. Pivoting to business, the coworker asks if the kid spotted any sketchy financial moves in the last few days. Thinking on his feet, the MC points out that the semiconductor equipment and materials sector would be a solid risky play. Breaking down his logic, he mentions that Murray Electronics is heavily ramping up its structural investments in that area. The assistant gently shoots the idea down, reminding him that info was already blasted out in the morning reports. Glancing down at his own notes, Yoon goes back and forth on whether he should spill the beans about that weird paper sector tip he got. Mustering the guts to trust his gut, he flips his phone face down and announces he spent the whole morning backing up a theory. Handing over his math, the young guy guesses that his coworker already had a specific target in mind when he asked for his technical read. Since the assistant is the only one who doesn't treat him like garbage because of his background, he admits he's been tracking the paper industry's numbers. Thanking him for a golden tip that matches his own playbook, the superior snatches the papers with major business interest. 3 days later, the office goes into total meltdown mode when the assistant comes sprinting in screaming the MC's name. Startled by the jump scare, Yoon asks what the heck is going on as he gets dragged over to look at a monitor. The screen shows Youngnam Paper's chart absolutely blasting off with a massive and instant price surge. Super hyped, the superior explains that the cardboard maker just announced a massive price hike for their goods. Watching the wild buying spree, the young guy realizes this shift isn't just a quick fad, but actual rocket fuel for investors. But the assistant points out a wild plot twist. Their rival Seokpung Paper has always been the true apex predator of the market. He thinks it's super shady that the humble Youngnam saw its stock price double compared to the undisputed king of the industry. Pitching his theory based on the news, the guy recalls that the top dog recently had a factory fire, which is going to flatline their production for months. Add that disaster to the mix, and Seokpung's shares were already way too pricey, making investors scramble for the cheapest alternative on the board. Feeling like a huge piece of the puzzle is missing, Yoon asks to borrow the computer real quick to run the numbers. He totally backs his coworker's theory, but points out that the real catalyst for the spike is a brutal supply and demand chokehold. Pulling up the hard data, the MC reveals that massive foreign funds are gobbling up every single available share. The superior crosses his arms, catching onto the play, and says he knows the business logic behind this massive buying spree. Comparing their business models, he clarifies that Youngnam is all in on the cardboard box market, which boasts a sweet profit margin. So down the assembly line, the final product taking the biggest hit from rising costs would be those exact shipping boxes. Adding to the brain blast, the young guy highlights that the cost of a single box is super low, but the daily demand for them is absolutely astronomical. From heavy industrial machinery to fragile beauty products, there isn't a single retail sector that doesn't burn through cardboard 24/7. To keep the cash flowing, even if the raw materials get cheaper later on, box factories basically never lower their prices for clients. Right in the middle of their victory lap, the office door swings open, revealing the very unwanted return of their toxic general manager. Safe from the boss's glaring eyes, the MC realizes in awe that the anonymous tip completely nailed the prediction again. Staring at his hidden phone, he starts playing with the idea that this whole setup might be a golden ticket made just for him. The screen lights up, flashing a hidden message that flat-out declares Yoon was officially chosen by the system. Creeped out by how accurate everything is, he notices the recurring pattern and tries to figure out how the software knows his actual name. After all, market scams are usually blasted out to thousands of people at once, never zeroing in on just one guy. The alerts just keep rolling in, promising that if he jumps on this chance right now, he'll be one step closer to his ultimate endgame. The text goes into crazy detail, saying the service can turn him into an elite fund manager if he accepts the deal. Seeing his ultimate dream typed out stops him dead in his tracks, bringing up the most painful and humiliating flashbacks from his school days. Back then, his guidance counselor brutally roasted his innocent dream of becoming a big shot in the capital markets. The teacher sneered that the finance sector only let in pros with flawless grades and god-tier resumes. Slamming an economics textbook on the desk, the educator told the kid to wake up and just focus on his high school homework. Ever since that crushing reality check, the young guy buried his ambitions and accepted the narrative that the stock market was just a giant casino. Dealing with that bitter pill, he kept his dream locked away and didn't breathe a word of it to anyone for years. But right now, the glowing notifications are rebooting that impossible promise of turning him into the guy he always wanted to be. His heart starts hammering as he realizes the app just revived the only real goal that made this miserable job bearable. Shaking with hype and nerves, he decides to toss his fear in the trash and starts typing his reply on the screen. Every single letter he types carries the heavy baggage of years of career letdowns and bullying from toxic bosses. The second he finishes typing his confirmation, he swallows hard, stares down the mystery, and finally smashes the send button. The blue chat bubble pops up on the screen, locking in his submission and sealing his pact with the unknown source. As soon as the system hits him with the read receipt, Yoon's eyes light up with serious determination while he waits for the glow-up. With the deal processed, the guy's eyes catch a blindingly bright blue flash that lights up his entire face. Holding his phone and looking totally dazed, he swears he just saw a beam of light shoot out of the screen and has zero clue what just went down. The app loads up a slick next-gen interface, throwing up a welcome message for the VIP plan. Blown away by the terms, he sees the system will help him hit his goals, only charging a fee once his dream actually comes true. Glued to his screen, the MC notices the software's alerts are going off like crazy. A hardcore warning pops up, stating that any attempt to make personal cash outside the main mission will get his service permanently banned. Hyper-focused, the young guy tries to process the endless wall of cryptic rules. Shook by how insane this all is, the guy rubs his head and wonders if he's literally hallucinating. The next day at work, the abusive manager marches right up to Yoon's desk and demands a quick chat. In the break room, the boss tries to play off the awkward vibe by cracking a sarcastic joke about the massive chewing out he gave the kid earlier. Watching the drama unfold from a distance, a coworker whispers in disgust that the manager needs to chill instead of humiliating the squad 24/7. Right then, another worker nods, pointing out that a bunch of people already quit just to escape this totally toxic workspace. Back to the chat, the manager throws on a fake friendly tone, claiming Yoon's sheer willpower has always been his best trait. But then the guy flips the script, pointing out that he noticed the kid being way more defiant and cocky that day. Losing his temper, the superior complains that they've gone days without closing sales and accuses the worker of actively looking for a fight. Not backing down, Yoon replies straight up that he isn't looking for any kind of drama. Boiling with rage over the lack of respect, the man demands to know why he hasn't gotten an apology yet and asks what the kid's deal is. Totally chill, the MC defends himself, saying he's just doing his job by offering products and keeping it real by comparing them to direct investments. He argues he's just giving an unbiased take. Stocks bring in more cash while the company's funds guarantee a safety net. Rubbing his forehead like he's about to explode, the boss asks if he seriously highlighted the good points and screams for him to just close the sales. Getting straight to the point, the manager says Yuseong signs his paychecks, implying the kid needs to slave away for their profit margins. Glaring at the guy with pure venom, the superior orders him to stop using client safety as a pathetic excuse. Standing up out of nowhere, the boss dares Yoon to prove him wrong or try to say one more smart thing. Holding his ground, the young guy fires back that actually making clients rich always leads to fatter profits for the company in the long run. Floored by the kid's ethical flex, the manager freezes with pure rage and lets out a sound of total disbelief. Losing his mind, the boss threatens to burn the whole place down because he's getting a morality check from a junior desk jockey. He screams at the top of his lungs that the kid is just a useless front desk scrub and has zero right to act like he knows anything. The yelling echoes through the whole office, totally freaking out the other workers who are listening to this wild debate over professional ethics. Sprinting in to stop a disaster, the assistant manager grabs the boss by the shoulders and begs him to take a breather. Even while being held back, the guy thrashes around in a blind rage, swearing he's going to punish the kid's rebellious stunt that exact same day. Sitting back at his desk after the massive freakout, the MC quietly asks himself why he suddenly went full savage mode. Staring at his phone screen, he wonders if this newfound bravery came from the system, or if he's just totally sick of being treated like garbage. Cutting his thoughts short, Assistant Choi walks up, says he absolutely loved watching the showdown and drops that he brought a present. Tossing an envelope on the desk, the partner hands Yoon a super expensive gift card, leaving him amazed and asking what it's for. Hyped about the returns, Choi explains he pitched the cardboard stock to a client, and the massive payout landed him a brand new account to manage. The young guy tries to humbly reject the credit, saying they researched it as a team and he didn't do anything special. Showing massive appreciation, the superior says he won't take no for an answer, because he only made bank thanks to his buddy's killer instincts. Seeing his friend won't let it go, the worker stares at the envelope for a sec and finally accepts the gift. Grabbing lunch at a super fancy spot, the assistant tells his buddy to order whatever he wants, promising he's picking up the tab. Chowing down, Yoon completely stops chewing when he spots the branch manager walking in with a dude in a razor-sharp suit. Trying not to ruin the vibe, his partner suggests they just play dumb and pretend they didn't see the duo to dodge any drama. Right at that exact second, the MC's eyes bug out, totally jump-scared by a notification that makes his phone vibrate. The VIP system shoots over an alert promising to drop some highly classified intel on an elite investment. Reading the fine print carefully, he realizes the new buy recommendation is locked onto a corporation called Jaeon System. After that crazy reveal, the story cuts straight to the general manager's massive, closed-off corner office. Inside the high-end room, Assistant Choi is looking eager and formally requests permission to run point on a block trade. The boss greenlights it instantly, reasoning that the employee is currently the biggest money magnet in the entire branch. Hyping up how huge the deal is, the man mentions it's a massive opportunity because it's being spearheaded by the vice president himself. Blown away by the heavy hitters involved, the coworker repeats the executive's title out loud just to make sure he heard it right. Playing the calculated boss, the manager warns that a block sale of this size is a very dangerous game in the market. He breaks down that the trade will print a disgusting amount of commission and swears the assistant is the only one skilled enough to pull it off. Fully aware of how heavy the crown is, Choi bows respectfully, thanks him for the shot, and swears he won't mess it up. Fired up, the superior claims that bagging this contract will skyrocket their branch to the absolute #1 spot in the national rankings. Knowing how insane the workload is going to be, the assistant points out he's going to need a temp to cover his daily grind. The manager kicks back in his chair, mulls over the request, and asks if he's already got someone in mind for the cover spot. Not holding back, Choi pitches Yoon as the absolute best guy for the job, which leaves the boss totally triggered and mind-blown. Having his buddies back, the assistant swears the kid is a literal genius, and offers to take the fall if anything goes sideways. Later that night, the city's skyline is totally lit up by the glowing windows of massive corporate skyscrapers. In the pitch black of his office, the manager takes a burner call and calms the guy on the other end, promising the scheme is in motion. Keeping his voice low, he explains he left the assistant manager in charge and dumped all the heavy lifting on their top analyst. On the line, the executive says he needs this to go perfectly to flex for the big bosses and hints at a massive payout. Showing his true colors, the mystery voice says the manager is overdue for a promotion to the board of directors at headquarters. Blinded by greed, the guy agrees on the spot and claims that's been his master plan all along. The contact demands that the branch team keep their mouths totally shut, and the superior agrees, wishing his partner in crime a safe trip. Hanging up the sketchy call, the manager drops his phone on the desk and lets out a massive sigh of relief in his chair. Staring into the dark room, he thinks about the very real risks tied to this billion-dollar shadow deal. The man assures himself the crew is solid, but admits he's sweating bullets about having a super nosy employee in the mix. While the boss is praying his scheme doesn't blow up, Yoon is completely locked in, intensely studying his phone screen. Reading the VIP text, the kid spots a weird pivot the app didn't say to buy Jaeon's system, it just said to keep an eye on it. Spooked by the shift in the pattern, he starts typing furiously, deciding to do a deep dive before making a move. The next day, Assistant Choi rolls up to the MC's cubicle and asks if he's swamped. Yoon politely says he's clear, and his coworker drops that this isn't just some quick favor. Patting the kid on the shoulder, the superior orders him to pack up and start working directly out of his office starting tomorrow. Stunned by the random upgrade, the young guy stammers, trying to double-check if he's actually moving to the VIP investment suite. Gripping his briefcase like a boss, Choi flashes a proud grin, officially stamping his friend's ticket to the elite squad. The MC's new workspace is run by an absolute unit of a professional who graduated from Hankook University. Being the absolute rock star of the office, the assistant has a crazy talent for pulling classified intel through his network. Already chilling in the fancy room, the kid gives his superior mad props for leveling up to the new suite. Staying humble, Choi brushes off the praise and says he only snagged the role because his buddy had his back the whole way. The man admits the MC was the only one who saw his actual potential in that cutthroat office. He claims that crushing it in client fundraising was the golden ticket that got him invited to this block trade. Hyped about the co-op mode, the assistant begs his coworker to keep carrying him until the project is officially wrapped. Moving fast, the superior grabs a file and says he needs to break down exactly what this deal is about first. He drops the bomb that the company in the crosshairs is Jaeon's system, the exact same one the MC's app was hyping up. Later that night, the gritty look of the cheap apartment building where the kid lives is a wild contrast to the high-end corporate branch. Chilling at home, Yoon is deep in thought about the company while glued to his computer screen. He gets that closing this deal is a guaranteed promotion for his buddy, and maybe even a permanent transfer for himself. But as he circles the company's name on a notepad, he's desperately trying to figure out why the system tagged it as highly suspicious. Using pure logic, the young guy guesses the app wouldn't throw a red flag if a price drop was just the market being moody. Worried sick about Choi, he realizes that any shady business in this deal would instantly nuke his partner's career. Dead set on cracking the case, the analyst starts digging through the corporation's skeletons and old contracts. Crunching the numbers, he realizes the company's superpower isn't innovation, it's just milking government contracts. Scanning the balance sheets, the young guy figures out that clinging to these ancient partnerships is literally the only thing keeping the lights on. The real jump scare hits when he uncovers a contract with Eugene Telecom that makes up more than half of their total revenue. Sweating bullets, the kid notices the deal expires in exactly 3 months, and there is absolutely zero sign they're going to renew. The next morning, the brokerage is totally empty and dead silent before the official opening bell. The clock reads a little past 7 in the morning, proving just how insanely committed these two are to the grind. Walking into the suite, Choi is blown away to see Yoon already hacking away at his desk and wishes him a great morning. The assistant jokes that only the most try-hard elites at the brokerage show up this early to hustle. Feeling a little guilty, the superior says he didn't need to go this hard and tells him to take a breather. Right after, he hands over a stack of files, asking for a highlight reel of the best-selling points for the stock buyers. Taking on the quest, the MC notes that he's definitely going to point out the red flags in the deal too. The boss smiles and nods, totally trusting his partner to pull off a flawless breakdown of the intel. While Choi juggles phone calls, the young guy sorts the paperwork looking dead serious. Locked in front of the monitor, Yoon is laser-focused on the documents, hunting for any trace of a scam. A few hours later, the kid walks over to his coworker's desk with a drink, pitching a quick coffee break. Taking a sip, Choi lets out a tired sigh and asks if the paperwork is a total headache. Dropping into a chair, the MC casually announces he's already completely done auditing the transaction. Using a super serious tone, the young guy drops a warning on his partner and says he ended up finding some bonus intel. Weirded out by how serious his coworker looks, the assistant adjusts his glasses and asks what the heck he means by that. After a quick pause, Yoon slides a folder across the desk and tells the guy he really needs to read the files first. Sensing the bad vibes, the superior takes the bait and grabs the documents, looking super intrigued. The second his eyes hit the highlighted sections, the assistant is absolutely floored by the reveal. The MC makes up a lie, claiming he'd been secretly tracking Jaeon's system for a while now. After all, there was zero chance he could explain that a magic phone app gave him an insider tip. Flipping the pages in horror, Choi is stunned by how much dirt the kid managed to dig up totally solo. The guy confesses that the company's financials looked so trash that he had no choice but to go down the rabbit hole. Realizing how bad it is, Choi connects the dots and realizes the big bosses are rushing to dump the stock because they know the ship is sinking. Yoon points out that rushing would make sense if they were just selling company shares to raise quick cash. But the massive red flag is that the rush is to liquidate the personal portfolios of the president and the board of directors. Disgusted by the greed, the assistant realizes the suits want to cash out and vanish before the company gets nuked. Sliding the report across the desk, the young guy gets ready to drop his final verdict on the mess. He declares that Jaeon failed to renew with Eugene Telecom, and the executives are straight up bailing out. Standing his ground, the employee states that this is his final, bulletproof conclusion as an analyst. The boss nervously asks if this is just a wild guess, but the kid promises he knew for a fact the second he read the paperwork. Dropping the receipts, Yoon shows the company tried to cut deals with 2 market giants and got slammed with rejections. Reading between the lines, Choi realizes the mega brokerages had already sniffed out the scam. Pissed off that he got played, the assistant grabs his phone, saying he needs to make a massive phone call right now. Meanwhile, in a super ritzy office, the branch manager's phone rings while he's kicking back and relaxing. Staring at a picture of a luxury sports car on his screen, the dirty boss picks up a call from his wife with a massive grin. Acting like he owns the world, he tells his wife to buy the car right this second to lock it down. Laughing out loud, the boss mocks his wife for being scared to spend, bragging that they have stupid amounts of money to burn now. Jumping up completely hyped, he paces the room and tells his wife to brace herself for more insane news. Blinded by greed, the manager tells her to totally scrap the idea of buying some average house in the suburbs. Staring out at the skyline, the guy daydreams about his upcoming promotion, plotting to buy a massive mansion right in the capital. Back in the VIP suite, Choi is dead serious on the phone, begging his insider to verify the intel. Sweating, the assistant thanks his buddy for the assist and swears he owes him a massive favor down the road. Hanging up, the man falls into a heavy silence, trying to process just how nuclear this scam really is. Looking up with terror in his eyes, he confirms that Yoon was 100% right about the fraud. The boss explains his guy at Thiessen confirmed the brokerage killed the deal because it was straight up illegal. Relieved they didn't walk into the trap, Yoon drops the bomb that the deal has one more filthy secret hidden inside. Keeping a poker face, the kid explains the evidence points to a black market broker pulling the strings behind the scenes. In a normal market, brokers only make bank by setting up legal trades. Brokerages act as the official legal reps for buying assets, and that includes block sales. The MC warns that the entire game changes the second criminals get their hands on the operation. Dirty deals involve market manipulation and leaking insider info, completely trashing every rule in the stock exchange. Breaking down the heist, the kid explains Eugene Telecom built their own in-house system, tossing Jaeon in the garbage for good. The second that hits the news, the stock is going to freefall, which is exactly why the owners want to take the money and run right now. That's exactly why the big brokerages blocked the sale, calling the whole operation a massive felony. Since no legit player would touch it, the directors hired a shady underground broker to hunt down a corrupt manager. Processing the data, Choi realizes the vice president of Yuseong is the mastermind pulling all the strings. The assistant figures the executive would never be dumb enough to miss the red flags, proving the branch manager is absolutely in on it too. He remembers the boss demanding absolute radio silence on the deal days ago, proving he was trying to bury a crime. Adding it all up, the guy realizes this mess is infinitely more lethal than it looked on paper. Feeling the walls closing in, he figures that going to war with the manager and the VP would be absolute career suicide. Miles away from that thought, Yoon is wondering about the anonymous tip and trying to figure out why the app tried to warn him. Seeing his partner go dead silent, the kid starts panicking that he messed up his technical read somehow. Suddenly, a wild move shatters the quiet office and totally derails the conversation. Frantically grabbing the files, the assistant tells Yoon he has to leave the brokerage right now to put out a massive fire. Sprinting out the door, the superior begs the kid to keep an eye on the stocks all afternoon, and the young guy agrees on the spot. Watching Choi run for his life, the worker finally clicks the pieces together and understands why this is all happening. He remembers the app's message, claiming he was literally just doing his job as an analyst. The text was basically confirming that his breakdown of the financial scam was absolute perfection. Far from the branch, the massive glass tower of Thiessen Securities casts a shadow over the city's financial district. Up on the executive floor, the secretary announces the surprise arrival of Assistant Choi from the Seongnam branch. Sitting at his ultramodern desk, Vice President Sim Ju-won asks if this guy even had a meeting on the books. Annoyed by the ambush, the executive tries to figure out why a random assistant showed up completely uninvited. The secretary explains the kid is demanding to clear up a situation face-to-face with him. Totally out of patience, the big boss lets out a heavy sigh at the random interruption. He checks his schedule with his assistant, who reminds him he's got a massive dinner in exactly 15 minutes. Tapping his fingers, the executive figures the drama must be insanely urgent to make a branch worker travel all the way there, and tells him to come in. Walking into the office with total respect, Choi bows and says thanks for being cool enough to take a surprise meeting. Standing up, the vice president introduces himself politely and shakes the assistant's hand. The two lock into a firm handshake, and Choi says thanks again for sparing a minute of his time. In the ultra-competitive finance world, Yuseong was basically looked at as a rookie compared to the titans. Even though they were the third largest player in the game, the company made almost all its cash managing the pension funds of its founders. But that narrative flipped the second the company dumped massive cash into corporate finance, making their profits go absolutely exponential. The mastermind behind that massive glow-up was Sim Ju-won, who is currently listening to the visitor hoping for some good news. Skipping the small talk, Choi sits down and lays out the highly sensitive reason for his ambush visit. Opening the file, the assistant drops that the Seongnam branch is putting together a monstrous block sale. Shocked, the executive says he had zero clue about this deal and asks who the whale client is. Dead serious, Choi reveals the trade is literally liquidating every single share owned by the Jaeon system bosses. Catching onto the playbook, the vice president realizes this is an executive escape plan. Handing over the receipts, the assistant asks the big boss to review the data right there on the spot. At Useong, there were 5 vice presidents constantly at each other's throats for power right under the CEO. Because of this toxic Hunger Games vibe, the executives were constantly going to war to prove who had the best numbers. Being the ultimate rival to the corrupt Hwang, Sim Ju-won scans the evidence that could totally nuke his enemy. Looking up from the paper, the executive asks if Choi is the one running point on this illegal trade. Owning up to it, the assistant listens as the boss declares the negotiation was doomed to crash and burn from day one. Taking the L, Choi admits the $1 million commission blinded him and made him totally ignore the giant red flags. But he drops that a front desk assistant helped him run the numbers and was the actual genius who found the proof of the crime. Slamming the folder shut in a rage, the executive demands to know how the local manager missed something a low-level worker figured out. Calculating the blast radius, he realizes the absolute worst part is having an underground broker touching the deal. Facing facts, the leader asks if the young analyst has any idea how lethal a corporate crime of this scale really is. Defending Yoon, the assistant swears the kid is the one who exposed the whole scam and hypes him up as a literal genius. Switching to strategist mode, the executive asks if manager Jin Tae-hyo is swimming in this dirt too. Choi flashes back to the moment the manager confessed the order to push the deal came straight from Vice President Hwang. Confirming the absolute worst-case scenario, the assistant claims the branch manager himself was the architect of the criminal plot. Fast forward 1 week after that insane meeting, and things look totally normal at the Seongnam brokerage. Barging into the room, the manager calls for the assistant with a massive, fake smile plastered on his face. Leaning on the desk, the dirty boss asks if the stock dump is moving along smoothly. Playing it incredibly cool, Choi lies like a pro, claiming the contracts with the buyers are already being drafted up. Eating up the lie, the manager hypes the assistant for managing such a colossal project without breaking a sweat. Weaponizing the lie, Choi tries to hand over a report, but the boss tells him to drop it off in his office later. Watching the whole circus from afar, Yoon thinks about how that billion-dollar deal had been frozen for ages. After Choi got back from HQ, they basically ghosted the fraud project and just went back to their daily grind. Out of nowhere, a massive crash startles every single worker in the office. A squad of guys in suits flashing investigator badges storms into the agency, marching straight for the manager. Standing face-to-face with Jin Tae-hyo, the raid leader demands the manager confirm his identity. Terrified, the corrupt boss can't even form a word, while the investigator shoves the audit warrant in his face. With a ruthless tone, the agent announces that a hardcore investigation into the branch starts right now. Handing over the paperwork, the guy declares that manager Jin Tae-hyo is suspended from his duties immediately. Absolutely destroyed by the end of his empire, the manager can't even string a sentence together while reading the document. The scandal leaks to the press, and they blast out headlines about the illegal broker getting busted for rigging the scam. The news reports confirm the prosecutor's office formally indicted Vice President Hwang and manager Hyo. Chilling at a dive bar, Choi downs a heavy shot of liquor and groans about how awful it tastes. Worried, the MC asks his buddy to slow down on the drinks. Pouring another glass, the assistant confesses he just wanted to celebrate the end of the scam, but he just can't shake the bad vibes. Yoon quietly watches his friend get crushed by the brutal reality of the stock market. Slamming his hand on the table, the superior mourns the disgusting amount of money regular people lost buying Jaeon stock. Thanks to the brokerage audit, the rumors of the crime totally nuked the tech company's reputation. The massive hedge funds dumped everything the second they caught wind of the raid, dropping a financial nuke right in the laps of average investors. Super depressed, the assistant vents that the little guy is always the one left holding the bag. Taking a drink himself, the MC accepts just how savage and unfair the corporate machine really is. Keeping it logical, the kid says investing is a choice, and people need to research as much as they're willing to risk. Eating quietly, Yoon thinks about how white-collar crimes only ever destroy the lives of working-class people. He knows for a fact he never would have dug that deep if the app hadn't flashed a warning about Jaeon. Without that text, the dirty deal would have gone through, bankrupting the clients who put their faith in them. The market would have nosedived, dragging small-time investors straight into a black hole of debt. All the blood, sweat, and cash of those people would have been swallowed whole by executive greed. Taking another chug, Choi complains that trusting the market basically always ends with innocent people getting punished. Staring into his glass, the assistant says he wants to stay 1,000,000 miles away from dirty professionals for the rest of his life. Right then, the coworker gets Yoon's attention in a way friendlier tone. Looking the kid dead in the eyes, Choi says the market would actually be awesome if there were more ethical guys like him around. Giving a shy smile, the partner admits he heavily doubted Yoon when he first offered to help out. Laughing it off, the kid gets why he was suspicious, since he was literally just a front desk clerk. But the superior waves it off, fully owning up to the fact that he was totally dead wrong about the young guy. Super grateful, the assistant declares that Yoon's massive brain saved the branch and stopped thousands of people from going broke. Totally burnt out, the coworker leans on the table and gives a genuine thank you for having his back during the absolute chaos. Seconds later, the assistant passes out hard on the restaurant table, totally exhausted and wasted. Putting his glass down, the young guy just stares at his sleeping buddy in total silence. Deep down, he thinks he's the one who should be saying thanks for getting mentored by the guy for so long. Grabbing his phone, he stares at a screen absolutely flooded with notifications from that ultra-exclusive app. The software confirms he is the chosen one, and that this is his ultimate golden ticket to change his life. Hooked on the idea of becoming a legendary fund manager, Yoon reads the virtual contract super carefully. Without blinking, the kid types yes into the app, officially locking in his entry into the high-stakes investment game. The next day, the vibe at the brokerage hits different with the MC back at the front desk. The staff is gossiping that he was the secret weapon that got the dirty manager locked up. A girl admits that, even with the raid jump scare, kicking the abusive boss out totally cured the toxic workplace. Choi walks into the bullpen, announcing that HQ is dropping the brand new general manager off today. Shook by how fast they moved, a clerk guesses corporate just sent some random guy to plug the hole. Sudden, loud clapping grabs the attention of everyone on the floor. The assistant manager orders the entire squad to huddle up near the desks ASAP. Looking dead serious, he introduces the new guy who is about to run the Seongnam branch. Wearing a razor-sharp suit, Ryu THWA gives a subtle smirk and politely wishes the team a good morning. Fully aware of the dumpster fire he walked into, the manager declares he's going to whip the agency into shape. Standing tall, he warns that the grind is going to be brutal and demands absolute loyalty to the rulebook. The staff claps and nods, just desperate to get back to normal after the whole police raid disaster. Assistant Choi is the first to step up and give the new boss a strictly professional handshake. After that, the manager locks eyes right on the MC and drops his name. The leader politely hypes the kid up, saying the rumors about his massive brain have already reached his desk. Yoon humbly says thanks, but gets totally shut down when the boss warns that the front desk needs to mind its own business and stick to its own paperwork. Floored by the savage order, Yoon and Choi try to process what the heck the boss meant by that. Staring a hole through the kid, the manager makes it crystal clear he doesn't want anyone doing side quests outside their official job title. Shutting down the chat, the guy marches into his office while the rest of the crew helps haul his moving boxes. A few hours later, the assistant manager drops the required files right on the new boss's desk. Skimming the paperwork, Ryu says thanks for the hustle and instantly goes back to the grind. Since they're off the clock, he tells the squad that helped him move to pack up and go home. Total silence takes over the office while the boss grinds away solo in his room. Noticing the assistant manager is still just standing there awkwardly, Ryu asks what his deal is. Hesitant, the guy says he needs to ask one quick question before clocking out. Without even looking up, the manager tells him to spit it out already. Mustering some guts, the worker asks why he's digging so hard into their past, and Ryu says he just needs to figure out how the agency ticks. Staring out the window, the boss claims it's absolutely vital to know the turf where he's going to be working. Triggered, the assistant manager keeps pressing, which makes Ryu ask if he's got a problem with that. The subordinate accuses the new leader of snooping through their history, just to find an excuse to punish the staff. With a totally lethal glare, Ryu calls the guy by his job title, dropping a silent but deadly warning. Standing up with major boss energy, the manager asks if he was this brave when the corrupt boss was running the show. Slamming the files on the desk, the leader says the assistant manager's cowardice is exactly what allowed a literal crime ring to operate in the agency. Ice cold, the boss asks why he's getting interrogated on literally his first day on the job. Dropping a reality check, Ryu claims the subordinate's disrespectful attitude just proves he's got trash character. Feeling the absolute weight of the roasting, the guy drops his head instantly and swears hell never crossed the line again. Turning back to the window, the leader explains that the rules exist purely to stop the agency from getting hit with another corporate felony. He promises he isn't there to play executioner and punish the team for the garbage the last manager pulled. Trying to fix the vibe, he tells the guy to chill out and gets a super genuine apology in return. Wrapping up the chat, the boss smiles and says the talk was great for clearing the air. Away from the agency, Choi tells Yoon that the new manager is legendary for following every single rule to the letter. Chowing down, the assistant drops the lore that the boss was the youngest team manager in the history of Yuseong. The MC is blown away by the flex and agrees that it proves the guy is ridiculously talented. Loving the gossip, the buddy hypes up the absolute domination Ryu pulled off at the Gangnam branch. Back then, their brokerage literally annihilated the competition when it came to bagging billionaire investors. Connecting the dots, Yoon figures out the boss isn't just an annoying rule follower, he's an absolute tactical genius. The coworker agrees, but points out that the massive success came from using incredibly ethical market strategies. By slashing expensive bribes and wild parties, the manager won over clients by proving he could print real money with total transparency. The most hardcore millionaires loved the vibe and transferred their fortunes to a guy who wasn't just a total party animal. Amazed by the clean hustle, the MC thinks it's an awesome move and totally worth copying. But the assistant gets bummed out, explaining that this hardcore ethics code is exactly what nuked the manager's life. Flashing back to when he worked there, he brings up a spoiled rich client who demanded insanely expensive gifts and toxic VIP treatment. At the bar, Choi tried to pacify the rich guy by pouring drinks and paying the massive tab out of his own pocket because of the agency's budget cuts. Feeling totally disrespected by the lack of corporate perks, the millionaire threw his drink right at the assistant, screaming that he doesn't take charity. The real nightmare started when the billionaire demanded the team take him golfing to apologize for cutting his VIP perks. The suit ordered them to send a car to pick him up before 6 in the morning on a weekend. Even with Ryu begging for forgiveness, the rich guy kept demanding to be treated like absolute royalty with a private chauffeur. He claimed the meeting was life or death for him, and demanded the car be at the gates of his mansion at the exact right time. At 5:50 on a Saturday morning, the ride pulled up to the big shot's house, honoring the deal. Walking up to the car, the millionaire grumbles that he doesn't give a damn about the brokerage's money, he just wanted to force the team to be his servants. But the driver's window rolls down to reveal manager Ryu sitting at the wheel, casually saying good morning. Ryu calmly explains he heard about the fight with his crew and showed up to squash the beef face-to-face. Chilling in the backseat, the rich guy laughs and says Choi didn't have to make his boss play driver just to beg for mercy. Right then, the leader fires back that his assistant was stuck in a totally impossible spot between Yuseong's rules and the client's toxic demands. Driving the car, he warns the guy that this is the absolute last time the agency will ever put up with this kind of abusive, diva behavior. The tycoon is completely paralyzed with shock after getting roasted in the back of his own luxury ride. Not giving a single damn about his rage, Ryu promises to make up for the policy changes by delivering insanely high returns on his investments. Furious, the client screams, asking if the guy has any clue who the heck he is. Ryu claps back that he knows exactly who he is, and that's exactly why he took the job to chew him out man-to-man. Boiling over the disrespect, the rich guy pulled 10 billion won out of Yuseong in a single day. All that stupid amount of money walked right out the door and straight into the hands of their rival, Seonjin. Seeing the massive hit to their wallet, the board of directors decided Ryu committed treason against the company and slapped him with a brutal punishment. Back at the restaurant, Choi explains that shipping Ryu off to a suburban branch was headquarters' way of putting him in timeout. Getting the full picture, the MC thinks the punishment is way too harsh for a guy who was just trying to be a good dude. Knowing the lore, he realizes Ryu's hardcore attitude is just his way of trying to fix their broken branch. Fully aware of how chaotic the place is, the boss just wanted everyone to shut up and follow the rules. Remembering the verbal slap he took that morning, Yoon decides the ban wasn't actually a personal attack. The kid realizes the manager genuinely believes the best play is for everyone to just stay in their lane and do their jobs. Agreeing, the buddy tells him to stop crying about the boss's strict vibe. The assistant hypes Ryu's brainpower and bets he's going to realize how much of a genius Yoon is super soon. Relieved by his coworker's hyped-up perspective, the kid smiles and says thanks for the pep talk. Later on, the brokerage is running dead silent during the lunch break. The clock shows it's just a little before 1 in the afternoon. Sipping coffee at his desk, the young guy nearly jumps out of his skin when another notification pops up on his phone screen. Reading the text, the system gives him mad props for never missing and drops the next recommendation. He sees the alert telling him to load up on Maseong Technology shares, calling a massive price spike. Doing a speedrun research session, he finds out the company makes super promising materials for semiconductors. Seeing his buddy totally locked in, Choi asks if he just struck gold again on his lunch break. Out of nowhere, the familiar voice of an old man echoes across the front desk area. Standing right there, the friendly old guy politely asks for some help. Spotting the client, Yoon jumps up instantly and offers him a chair. The old man says thanks and mentions he specifically waited until after lunch so he wouldn't wreck the kid's break. Leaning in close, the guy whispers that he doesn't trust a single other broker in the entire building. Smiling, the old man gives Yoon props for never trying to shove garbage products down his throat just to hit a quota. Keeping it polite, the MC asks what the guy was researching before he came in. Skipping the small talk, the old man says he wants to dump every single share of Murray Electronics. Yoon is shook by the rush, remembering that this was supposed to be the inheritance for the guy's grandkids. Sweating about the cash, he warns that dumping it now could mean taking a hit from trading taxes. The client swears he did the math and that hell break even, demanding he sell it all. Wrapping up the trade, the kid happily reports they didn't lose a dime and actually made a tiny profit. Hyped, the old man tells him to take the cash and dump it all into whatever company he was just geeking out over on his screen. The worker completely freezes in panic, realizing the man has absolute blind faith in him. Totally chill, the old guy says he doesn't need to know the company if the kid already did the homework for him. With a kind look, he completely trusts the young guy to pull the trigger on the buy. Yoon gets totally emotional over how insanely loyal this client is in a market full of snakes. The man reminisces that they've been teaming up for about 2 years straight now. That old man was literally the first investor at the brokerage who ever agreed to be helped by the kid. Hyping the kid's morals, the man swears Yoon is the only broker he's ever actually respected. The client points out that the worker never tried to scam him over his lack of tech knowledge. Since he's never taken an L, he demands they buy shares in the random new company. Holding the paperwork, Yoon thinks about how the magic app's tips have literally never missed. The catch is, he needs to dig up the actual technical proof that explains why the company's stock is going to moon. Keeping it real, he refuses to lock in the buy until he's absolutely certain why the company is about to pop off. The kid asks the old man to slide back tomorrow so they can lock in the trade safely. Blown away by the hardcore honesty, the old man agrees to wait for the research to finish before throwing his money down. Totally satisfied, he heads out and promises to come back the next day when the young guy is 100% sure about the play. Going full detective, the system shows that the semiconductor market is literally running the world's tech. In that specific lane, Maseong is the MVP, building the final gear needed to actually manufacture the parts. Scouring the reports, the analyst tries to figure out where the corporation actually prints its money. The balance sheets show non-stop growth and a terrifyingly healthy financial setup. Deep in thought, he figures the company has a massive future, but he still needs to hunt down the spark that'll trigger the sudden price nuke. Digging for rumors and news, he trips over a leak about a supply deal with the Titan Murray. The papers claim Murray is bleeding insane amounts of money due to busted products on their assembly line. To patch the leak, they desperately need hyper-accurate machines to speedrun their chip testing. Since Maseong has the absolute best testing gear in the game, they become the obvious savior for the partner corp. The next day, the scene cuts right back to the front doors of the Seongnam brokerage. Greeting the investor, the MC drops a good morning packed with absolute confidence. The old guy jokes that he showed up way too early, but the kid says his timing is flawless. Handing over a folder, Yoon gives him the ultimate breakdown, proving exactly why this buy is going to print cash. Kicking off the pitch, he admits the company's revenue looked like trash last year. But he instantly follows up, explaining it only tanked because they burned a mountain of cash inventing next-gen tech. Flexing the charts, he swears the massive stockpiles are just them bracing for a global explosion in sales. Totally sold on the pitch, the old man smiles and asks if they can finally pull the trigger on the stock safely. Stoked by the man's faith, the MC says he still needed to cover the best parts, but his phone starts blowing up. Glancing at the screen, he freezes in absolute terror when he reads the glowing red warning. The magic app screams that Maseong just lost 8% of its value in the blink of an eye. The alerts keep spamming, showing the stock is in a total freefall, leaving the kid panicking and totally lost on why the disaster is happening. Over at the next desk, Assistant Choi is sweating bullets on the phone, begging a millionaire not to panic sell his portfolio. Watching the drop blast past 15%, the superior begs the guy to swallow his fear and just hold the line a little longer. Trying to stop a total liquidation, he argues the company's foundation is God tier and the jump scare will blow over. With the phone glued to his ear, he pleads with the client not to dump anything during this totally random meltdown. When the call ends on a completely toxic note, Choi throws himself into his chair and lets out a massive sigh of defeat. Staring down his own phone, he tries to process how $1 million disaster like this could pop off so fast. With zero time to cry about it, the superior scrubs his contacts for any market buddy who knows what the heck is going on. When his guy picks up, he already knows Choi is calling to cry about Maseong's freak crash. Pissed off, the assistant says clients are screaming for answers, and the media doesn't have a single headline explaining the mess. The insider spills that MG Bank is aggressively liquidating shares, and the kill order came straight from their Hong Kong desk. Hanging up, Choi says thanks for the tip and tries to figure out why the foreign suits at that fund just went completely nuclear. Typing like a madman to find answers, he gets super angry hunting for the hidden reason behind this stupid crash. Suddenly, a soft tap on the glass shatters the office silence and pulls the assistant's attention away. Yoon pops up at the door and carefully asks if his superior has a sec to chat about a massive problem. Spinning around instantly, the boss stands up and says he was literally just about to summon him to talk about the exact same nightmare. Skipping the intro, the MC asks if his coworker's panic attack is about the Maseong stocks. Blown away, the assistant asks if the kid was also watching the tech company get absolutely annihilated. The worker confirms the threat, but demands to know where this tsunami of sell orders is coming from. Without a second thought, the superior drops that the execution order came from the international branch of a mega bank. Chewing on the data, the kid asks if his contact caught any rumors or backstage gossip about the company on the trading floor. Choi reports there is zero bad press out there, and thinks it's super sketchy for the fund to dump everything now, especially since it's not even rebalancing season. Scanning the clues, the MC flashes a cocky smile and guesses that the market apocalypse was literally just a typo from some foreign dude. Completely mind-blown by the theory, the assistant asks if this entire global meltdown could seriously just be some guy's fat finger smashing the wrong key. Totally chill, the kid points out there is literally zero other logical explanation besides a ridiculously stupid human error when submitting the order. A massive silence drops over the office as they process the weight of a discovery that could literally print millions. Miles away from their panic, the old man is just chilling at the front desk without a single complaint that his favorite analyst ghosted him. Another broker politely offers to step in, but the client shoots him down with a smile, saying he's totally fine waiting a bit longer. Right then, Yoon comes sprinting back to his chair and begs for forgiveness for the awful delay. The kid feels terrible about making him wait, but the super charismatic old guy tells him to drop it and not stress. Settling into his chair, the MC listens as the old man hyped up asks if he finally cracked the code on the stocks. The kid takes a dead silent pause, feeling the massive weight of gambling the client's cash on an asset that is actively melting down. Mustering his courage, he grabs the reports and locks eyes with the old man, looking like an absolute pro ready to call the play. Completely unshakable, the analyst promises the guy he needs to weaponize the chaos and buy every single share right this second. Staring at the bleeding red chart, the old man tries to remember the fancy buzzword the kid used to explain market glitches. Getting how insane the risk is, the man wants to double-check if this monstrous crash is seriously just a human typo. Yoon swears it is, promising the price is going to absolutely moon the second the foreign bank realizes what a colossal screw-up their trader just made. In the biz, they call it a fat finger error, which is when some idiot bumps an extra key and accidentally sells billions. Packed with confidence, the old man orders the kid to dump all his money into the buy, which leaves the worker totally floored by the stupidly huge amount. Feeling the sheer weight of that inheritance in his hands, the MC humbly warns that his wildly risky read could totally backfire. The old guy laughs and says it would be super messed up to bait an old man with massive profits and then try to back out of the trade. Typing the order into the screen, the analyst repeats that it would be way smarter to play it safe before betting the entire farm in one shot. Rejecting the fear, the client argues that the company's fundamentals are still rock solid, regardless of some foreigner's screw-up. Flexing his resolve, the investor demands the trade, absolutely certain the kid wouldn't drag him into a trap. Laughing, the old man jokes that if it all goes up in flames, the loss will just be his way of paying the kid back for putting up with his boomer moments. Hearing that insanely genuine flex of loyalty, the kid's drive to make this man rich goes absolutely off the charts. On the flip side, Assistant Choi is glued to his monitor, biting his nails to the bone, while the stock just keeps tanking at 11 o'clock. Without blinking, the MC watches the chart, praying with his entire soul for the numbers to pull off the ultimate comeback. In a matter of seconds, the line that was in a death spiral violently snaps back, rocketing straight up and totally proving his theory right. The stock revives with terrifying momentum, smashing through every resistance wall and heading straight for an absurd payout. Later that evening, the city's orange sunset sets the stage for the end of the most exhausting and crazy profitable day in the branch's history. Walking out the door totally dead, the boss offers to foot the bill for a victory dinner, shocking the kid with the super generous move. The young guy points to their usual cheap spot, but Choi shuts it down in disgust and demands they go feast somewhere ultra fancy. Strutting ahead like a boss, the assistant says he already locked down the reservation and tells the kid to fall in line. While they're walking, the MC sneakily pulls out his phone to check the mystery system. Staring coldly at the messages, he realizes the profit hit exactly as predicted, but the actual window to pull off the buy was way too insanely tight. Dead serious, he swears to stop relying purely on magic alerts and vows to grind the market data like a madman. 5 days after that crazy trade, the Yuseong brokerage opens up looking like an absolute warzone of noise and screaming. In the back office, the manager and the assistant manager are completely shell-shocked watching the insane mob swarming the front desk. An army of panicking clients is packing the lobby, forcing the staff to scream over the noise just to get them into a single line. Sweating bullets under the crushing stress, the clerks are handing out queue tickets, wondering if they'll even survive the shift. Mind blown by the random stampede, the boss demands to know why the branch is suddenly overflowing while ordering the crowd to be wrangled. Hyped up, the assistant manager explains the hype train is all thanks to the legendary typo from the foreign fund that hit Miss Seong. The guy proudly brags that one of the agency's analysts saw the future before everyone else and had the guts to call an instant buy. That big brain move forced the foreign bank to buy back their own overpriced shares, handing a disgusting amount of profit to anyone who diamond-handed the dip. The whole stunt made the front pages of the major papers, hyping the accident as the greatest investment opportunity in recent history. Amazed by the broker's massive flex, the new manager quickly asks which veteran mastermind pulled the strings on this play. Looking a bit awkward, the subordinate drops his voice to admit the genius masterplan actually came from a low-level front desk clerk. Shook by the plot twist, Ryu asks if the guy pulling this off wasn't even a finance manager and instantly guesses exactly who it is. The assistant manager confirms right away that Yoon Do-kyung is the one who caused this absolute circus at the front desk. Giving some backstory, the guy explains the client who actually listened to the kid's tip was the CEO of a massive local corporation. Because of that, he says the millionaire was so hyped about the stupidly high returns that he ordered all his employees' accounts to be moved over to their branch. To lock the deal in, the tycoon specifically demanded that the MC be the only guy allowed to set up these new accounts. Curious about just how massive this win really was, the manager cuts to the chase and asks what the exact profit margin was on the trade. Not even trying to hide his shock, the subordinate drops that the gains hit a god-tier 37%. Hearing that ridiculous number, Ryu is completely stunned that a flex like that was pulled off in just 3 days. On top of that, the guy mentions assistant Choi also secured massive bags for his clients, since he got the heads up about the market glitch. This entire wild scenario leaves the new boss incredibly curious to figure out how the kid had the guts to make such a massive gamble. Since the assistant manager only got the Cliff Notes version of the story, he admits he has absolutely zero clue what technical data backed up the call. That mystery sparks a totally genuine urge in the leader to put his employees' actual skills under a microscope. Moving fast, the manager orders the MC to report straight to his office the second he clears his queue. Caught off guard by the random summon, the kid lets out a confused hum, having no idea what his boss is plotting. Keeping a hardcore vibe, Ryu makes it clear he wants to hear straight from the kid's mouth exactly what made him act so cocky. Wrapping up his thought, the leader warns that if the kid's excuse isn't rock solid, things are going to get super ugly. After all, pulling a wild stunt like that just proves he was gambling with the client's money. Chilling in the dead silence of his private office, the boss leans back in his fancy chair and thinks hard about the mystery kid's name. Scanning his basic resume, he realizes the guy tried to break into the elite squad but got blocked because his degree wasn't fancy enough. Even with that massive academic handicap dragging him down, the boss is amazed he managed to score a spot in the operations division at all. Laser-focused on the files, the man tries to crack what kind of big-brain tactic the kid used during his hiring interview. Right then, he spots a massive list of hardcore financial certifications and is blown away that a simple clerk is this insanely qualified. A soft knock breaks the manager's focus, and he immediately tells the summoned worker to come in. Checking out the MC's slick posture, Ryu is totally fascinated, deciding the kid is super weird but packed with crazy potential. Standing dead center in the massive room, the young guy keeps it respectful while waiting for orders, as the sunlight lights up the place. To kick things off, the superior brings up the kid's old, gutsy claim that he would take the fall and beg for mercy if he ever messed up. Using a totally provocative tone, the leader asks again exactly how a lowly desk clerk planned to shoulder that kind of nightmare. Sweating under the pressure, the young guy clenches his fists and humbly admits he's at the absolute bottom of the corporate ladder. But he fires back with zero hesitation, swearing he has always grinded to the max, playing strictly by the rules since day one. Breaking down his playbook, Yoon explains he busts his hump to memorize every single investor's profile, tracking their favorite stocks and trading styles. Backing up his defense, the kid states that the old man didn't get any special VIP treatment, and that he always respects what the client actually wants. Oozing confidence, he claims he never would have pushed those shares if he wasn't 100% sure the old man loved high-risk plays. Intrigued by the deep dive, the manager crosses his arms and asks to hear exactly what this so-called style was that justified the wild bet. The MC explains the investor claims to love long-term holds, but hilariously loses his mind waiting after just 30 days. Because of that, the client always comes back to the desk complaining about slow profits, basically setting a 1-month absolute time limit. Flexing his analytical brain, Yoon guesses that this read on the guy's behavior was the entire foundation for his investment game plan. Even if the freefall wasn't caused by a foreigner's typo, he was totally convinced the stock would rebound before the deadline hit. Not letting up, the leader demands the kid drop the hardcore technical facts that actually backed up this super optimistic theory. Straight to the point, the kid says the other international players were already showing massive buy signals. Adding to that, he points out the company pays out fat dividends, which turn the price crash into an absolute steal for the mega hedge funds. Deep diving the stats, the worker proves the company is a fortress by bringing up their massive contracts with top-tier electronics factories. To top off the perfect storm, a monstrous brand new assembly line for the corp was set to drop in the next few months. Hearing this absolute masterclass in logic, the manager is blown away, finally seeing exactly where all this technical data was heading. Proving the theory right, Yoon declares that their god-tier machinery made them the only legit option for a multi-million-dollar government contract. Wrapping up the story, the MC celebrates that the news leak dropped that exact same morning, sending the price to the moon just like he called it. Totally mind-blown by the analytical flex, the new boss punches his own hand, hyped about the kid's rare genius. Holding back his own hype, the manager turns around and admits he totally gets why the squad hated his leadership at first. Using the break in the tension, the young guy politely asks for a sec to drop one of his favorite literature quotes. Standing in the room, Yoon recites the iconic line, declaring he will never back down from a belief until everyone admits he was right all along. Hiding how shocked he is by the high IQ flex, Ryu instantly names the author and asks about the book. The kid confirms the book reference right away, but drops a heavy warning that a crucial mindset has to come before acting that stubborn. Hooked on his top employee's thought process, the leader asks him to spill what this secret ultimate step is. Staring dead at the boss, the MC claims the real cheat code to beating the market is practicing non-stop self-doubt. Flexing about his all-nighters studying at the office, he admits he builds thousands of theories and ruthlessly questions every single piece of his own ideas. The mental grind is so brutal that the kid filters through options obsessively until he finds a lock that is literally impossible to fail. It's only after that miserable mental torture that he actually feels ready to pull the trigger on a financial move. Snapping back to his rigid posture, Yoon clarifies that all his confidence for that lethal trade came straight from that hardcore prep. Promising to play it safer from now on, the young guy listens as the manager sarcastically asks if he plans on retiring his genius tips. Shooting down the idea of quitting, the analyst explains he's just going to dump way more time into researching to make absolutely sure the asset is perfect for the client. Processing that cocky but polite comeback, the superior laughs internally, realizing the kid literally just refused to admit he did anything wrong. Recognizing the kid's undeniable gift, the boss openly praises him as the most fascinating person he's ever met in the corporate world. Staring at the massive city out the window, the man decides he is definitely going to keep a close eye on this freakishly good employee. Right after the chat, Ryu grabs his phone and speed dials a seriously heavy hitter's number. Putting the phone to his ear with total boss energy, he drops his name and kicks off the call, ending a massive dry spell of them not speaking. Flexing a confidence loaded with hidden agendas, the man greets the corporate vice president who picked up the line. The next morning, the sun lights up the slick Yuseong Investments building again, bringing in a way more chill day. When the clock hits quitting time, the agency workers stretch out, super hyped to finally be done with the grind. Noticing the kid is still glued to his computer, a coworker asks if he's heading home, but the young guy says he's still got side quests to finish. Suddenly, the assistant comes sprinting back into the bullpen and screams the MC's name, making everyone turn their heads. He doesn't sugarcoat it, saying Yoon needs to get his butt to the manager's office right this second for an emergency meeting. Setting a light drink on the glass table, the manager gives a totally genuine apology for ruining his top analyst's downtime. Chilling on the fancy sofa with perfect manners, the young guy says it's no sweat and asks, looking stressed, if a massive disaster just happened. Totally blowing the kid's mind, the leader grabs a massive document and offers him a god-tier opportunity if he wants it. Handing the paperwork to the kid, Ryu doesn't beat around the bush and says he plans to nominate him to work at the brokerage's main headquarters. Completely paralyzed by the random promotion, the MC stares at the paper stuttering, literally unable to believe what he's looking at. The manager flashes a confident smirk and says he wants to hand him a golden ticket. Staring at the flyer for the internal investment tournament, the young guy looks pretty freaked out. Right then, the boss says the kid's hiring process was super weird, considering he actively tried to join the elite squad. The kid nods, defending himself by saying he grinded his whole life to be a fund manager, but his trash college degree got him blocked. Knowing how the real world works, Ryu admits the corporation is totally boomer-minded and asks what went down after he got rejected. Do-kyung flashes back, saying the day after he got the rejection email, Vice President Sim literally called him up to offer his current desk job. The executive swore that if he grinded like an absolute maniac at the front desk, he'd earn a shot at a real promotion later on. Hearing the lore, the boss figures that swallowing his pride for that deal couldn't have been easy for the kid. Then he asks if the guy is seriously that thirsty to become a fund manager no matter what it takes. Hit with the blunt question, the MC goes dead silent for a sec, cooking up the perfect comeback. Killing the tension, the manager asks out of nowhere if the kid has ever seen a chunk of raw gold. He drops some knowledge, saying that when it's fresh out of the dirt, the rock looks like trash, but that doesn't mean it's not insanely valuable. The leader flexes his master plan to find a totally raw talent and polish it up to flex on the investors. Dropping a lore bomb, the boss admits Vice President Sim is also obsessed with hunting down massive prodigies. Connecting the dots, he figures that's exactly why the kid caught their eye, since HQ is actively beefing up that division. The manager complains that he can't just transfer him directly, explaining that HQ set up this tournament as a hardcore trial by fire. Pointing at the paper, he hypes up that the bonus prize is a guaranteed slot in whatever department the winner wants. The superior explains that you can only enter if you're personally invited, and drops that he already put the kid's name on the roster. He hypes the kid's flawless ethics with the clients, saying he wants to see if someone with actual morals can survive in that snake pit. Rooting for him with his whole chest, the leader admits he felt morally obligated to hand him this shot. Tapping the document, the boss declares this is the golden ticket for the kid to finally prove he's a literal god at this. Right at that exact millisecond, the mystery app pops up, confirming the MC has been selected to make his ultimate dream come true. Feeling the insane pressure of the moment, the worker clenches his fists, absolutely vibrating with the need to win. Locking eyes with his boss, he swears he's going to grab this chance and go completely try hard. Outside, the young guy stares up at the absolute unit of a building that is Yuseong HQ, imagining his own future inside. In his head, he does the math and realizes it's been 2 whole years since he swore he'd walk back through those main doors. But the kid smirks, admitting to himself he never in a million years thought his big comeback would be through a fake trading tournament. Flashing back, he remembers the suffocating anxiety and the suits that run the absolute top of this corporate food chain. Cutting his trauma trip short, his attention gets hijacked by his phone buzzing in his palm. The system drops a notification telling him to buy Yuseong semiconductors and swears it'll carry him through. Shook by the random tip, the kid thinks it's super ironic that the app is telling him to bet on a company from his own conglomerate. Running the market math in his head, he knows chips are vital, but he also knows the manufacturing side is in a total dumpster fire right now. The main issue is the financial news is only crying about doomsday, screaming about the complete collapse of the sector. Walking down the block, the analyst calls cap on the doomsday hype, even though he knows he plays the long game. Trusting the software, he figures there has to be some secret catalyst for a massive instant spike and tries to hunt it down before the tournament starts. Sweating the deadline, he hesitates for a second, wondering if he should just blind fire the tip if he can't find a single solid reason. But the young guy shakes his head to kill the lazy thought, remembering his vow to never invest without being 100% sure. Locked in on leveling up, he decides he's going to deep dive the company just like he always does. With his head held high, the employee walks into HQ with his confidence fully recharged for the war ahead. Meanwhile, the marketing squad is panicking because their corporate YouTube channel is dead last in subscribers. Assistant manager Lee warns Newbie Park that if they don't fix this massive L fast, they're going to get roasted by corporate. With 0 options after the board's threat, the rookie just nods his head in defeat. Jumping up, the superior demands they cook up some clickbait content and asks if there's any weirdo in the tournament they can exploit. Scanning the roster, the rookie says he found a total anomaly, a single front desk clerk surrounded by absolute elite tryhards. The assistant manager remembers the lore instantly, recalling that the kid got drafted by the ultra-strict Ryu. But the worker corrects him, dropping the bomb that Vice President Sim was the one who pulled the kid's file, leaving his boss absolutely floored. The heavy-hitter executive was legendary in the company for having a god-tier radar for spotting prodigies. Completely mind-blown, the marketing boss tries to wrap his head around why an apex predator executive would bet on a random clerk. Hyped about the theory, the young worker guesses the kid might be the board's secret weapon. Flashing a greedy smile, the assistant manager agrees this drama would make an absolute banger of a video and decides to stalk the kid. Later in the event hall, the tryhards settle at their desks while the camera crew sets up their rigs. Taking control of the shoot, Lee introduces himself officially and turns on the charm for the analysts. He reminds everyone they signed away their image rights for YouTube the second they filled out the sign-up sheet. Moving fast, the guy announces the interviews will be filmed in the back of the room and calls the first victim. Hearing his name echo in the hall, Yoon stands up instantly, claiming his spot. Standing in front of the lens, the crew tells him to drop a hyped-up intro for the channel's subscribers. Keeping it pro, the MC drops his intro and mentions he grinds at the Seongnam branch. Fishing for views, the reporter directly brings up the fact that he's the only player here working a customer service job. Hearing about his bottom-tier job, the elite HQ suits start laughing and mocking the kid behind his back. Trying to kill the toxic vibe, Lee promises the job isn't a downgrade and asks what made him jump into the tournament. Ignoring the haters, Yoon smiles and drops that his ultimate life goal is to become a fund manager. The marketing guy catches the play, asking if he's gunning for the ultimate class change prize. Keeping the interview rolling, the manager notes that to snatch that golden ticket, you have to be ridiculously cocky. With eyes full of absolute certainty, the analyst tells the camera he trusts his skills 100%. Hyped by the flex, the reporter tells him to use the screen time to hype himself up and drop his best stats. The kid breaks down that his ultimate weapon is macroeconomic analysis, basically hunting for the true value of a company. Eating up the nerd talk, Lee praises the pitch and asks the million-dollar question: what's his target to win the whole thing? Hit with the ultimate question, the MC locks his eyes and remembers the cheat code his phone handed him. Catching the awkward silence, the interviewer asks if he crossed a line, but the kid calmly says nope. With zero fear of flopping, he confesses to the entire room that he's going to dump massive cash into Yuseong Semiconductors. The second he drops the company's name, the serious vibe of the shoot gets completely shattered by people laughing in the background. Shocked by a play that the entire market thinks is absolute garbage, the marketing guy turns his head in total disbelief. In the back, one of the suits literally cannot stop laughing and sarcastically apologizes for ruining the audio. Unable to hold back the snark, the executive explains he's laughing because the desk clerk's master plan is an absolute joke. Oozing arrogance, the suit publicly bullies the kid on purpose, flexing that he's part of the elite HQ squad. Stepping into the frame, the egomaniac suit introduces himself to the camera as assistant manager Lee Changyi. The reporter asks why he's in the ring, and the guy calmly says his motives are exactly the same as everyone else's. Smirking with pure greed, Lee repeats that the grand prize is that god-tier transfer everyone is drooling over. Cutting in, Yoon jumps into the chat and asks straight up if the guy's current department isn't already seen as top tier. The assistant manager shakes his head with a smirk, but admits his real endgame has always been to be a manager just like the kid wants. Keeping the content machine running, the video guy pivots back to the drama that just went down in the hall. The man demands Yoon explain why he picked Yuseong Semiconductors, since the choice literally made people laugh out loud. Taking the chance to throw shade, Lee says the desk clerk thinks he's a god at analysis, but just locked in a totally trash bet. Chilling in front of the bleeding red chart, the executive mocks him, saying even complete noobs know the chip market is dead. Not even sweating the sarcasm, the MC flashes a smile and fires back, asking which company the arrogant rival is going to bet on. Lightning fast, the assistant manager confesses with absolute confidence that he's betting the farm on Hanseong Shipbuilding's explosive growth. Flexing for the camera, he brags about using a hybrid of technical and market analysis, gatekeeping the actual details of his master plan. Pointing with absolute certainty, Lee declares that a brand new golden age for shipbuilding is about to drop. Wrapping up his segment like a gentleman, Yoon thanks the camera crew for the hustle and suggests they head to the official battleground. Right after, the mob of suited-up tryhards walks down the HQ halls, whispering about the brutal trial coming up. Walking right next to him, a woman asks if they seriously had to listen to that arrogant opponent spew so much garbage. Looking totally drained, she complains that she can't figure out why brokerages are always packed with such egotistical idiots. The MC is a little spooked by how brutally honest she is out of nowhere, and just mumbles while trying to process the rant. Turning with a friendly vibe, the woman formally introduces herself as Lee Yeonjae, an analyst from the research hub. She mentions she's already hitting her 4-year mark at the company, and is super hyped to be working near the kid for the tournament. Returning the intro with a handshake, he mentions he's only in his 2nd year and agrees to call her senior out of respect. The girl smiles politely, explaining she didn't drop her tenure to demand worship, and gives him mad props for his hot take on tech companies. Yoon thinks the backup is hilarious, and reminds her that basically every other player in the room laughed at his logic. Walking down the hall, the analyst defends the kid, claiming they only roasted him without even trying to understand the math. Dropping veteran knowledge from the trenches, she tells him to totally ignore the empty trash talk from that suit. Yeonjae swears from experience that dudes who spend all day trashing other people's gut feelings usually get wiped out of the market super fast. Surprised by how hard she's defending him, the worker awkwardly rubs his head and admits he doesn't even know what to say. But he drops a totally real smile, thanking her for the hype and admitting it felt awesome to hear someone actually believe in his play. Reaching the final boss room, the supervisor throws open a massive door, revealing the exact arena where they'll go to war for 4 weeks. The zone is a massive, ultramodern office packed with top-tier tech and PCs ready to execute financial strikes. Showing off the room, the tournament boss explains they purposely built a sick-looking set just for the YouTube cameras. Pointing at the setups, he orders every player to sit at the desk that has their name tag on it. Touching his new desk, the MC feels a tiny bit of pride finally having his own HQ setup, even if it's just for a fake game. Sitting down, he gets a massive jump scare of joy when he realizes his veteran buddy got placed at the exact desk right next to him. Hyped by the RNG, Yeonjae throws up a fist and prays they both absolutely dominate the profit war. Clapping to shut everyone up, the supervisor grabs the room's attention and orders them to check the paper left on their desks. The document orders them to build their starter portfolio, giving them total freedom as long as they stay under a 10 million won cap. Breaking down the rules of engagement, the leader warns that dumping stocks can only happen during a super strict, tiny time window. To stop anyone from hacking the system, the rules ban any extra trades midday and completely block buying back shares you already dumped. On top of the legendary job transfer, the simulation will drop a 10 million won cash prize for whoever scores the highest profit margin. Finishing the tutorial, the leader orders them to fill out the sheets in under an hour, using yesterday's closing prices. Starting the timer, he screams that the war has officially started, dropping an insane amount of tension over the entire room. The frantic sound of keyboards getting smashed fills the room as the analysts speedrun their strats before the buzzer. Hiding his phone, Yoon stares at the magic tip and thinks it's super sketchy to blindfire a perfect recommendation without knowing why. Staring at the glowing screen, the kid admits the lack of lore annoys him sometimes, but he's definitely not going to throw away his cheat code. Ignoring the haters, the guy writes Yuseong Semiconductors at the absolute top of his list, convinced it's going to moon. Over the next hour, a bunch of players finish their math and hand their sheets over to the admins. All alone in his zone, the MC stays buried in insane calculations, trying to perfectly balance the forced budget cap. Staring at notes about oil and ships, he mumbles that building a cash printing portfolio with a micro-budget is absolute torture. Cranking up the anxiety in the room, the leader throws his arm up and screams they only have 10 minutes left until the cutoff. Racing the clock, the absolute last player finishes locking in his picks with retail brands and construction crews. Handing the sheet in at the literal last second, the assistant manager laughs awkwardly while the supervisor cracks a joke about him being slow. With every single tournament sheet secured, the boss smiles like a maniac and announces he's going to expose everyone's picks right now. Instantly, a massive projector beams to life, throwing the master's screen up on the back wall. The suits jump out of their chairs and form a chaotic mosh pit in front of the screen to spy on their enemies' bets. Analyzing the HQ Elite's picks, Yoon is genuinely blown away by how insanely big-brained their portfolios are. Pushing through the mob to reach him, analyst Yeonjai comments that the kid looked like he was fighting for his life trying to finish his spreadsheet. The veteran laughs and admits his face was so intense and stressed out she was actually too scared to talk to him. Laughing to kill the stress, the worker admits he had to burn a lot of brain cells to make the math line up perfectly. Out of nowhere, the assistant manager's arrogant voice ruins the chill vibe, asking if the desk clerk is terrified of taking the. Annoyed by the random aggro, the MC turns his head looking totally confused and asks what the dude is trying to imply now. Pointing an accusing finger, Lee yells out that Hanseong Shipbuilding is also sitting on the kid's roster. Dripping with sarcasm, the suit asks if the kid purposely copied his god-tier bet right after watching his legendary interview. The analyst gets furious over the bullying and tries to jump in, but Yoon chills her out, saying he can handle his own fights. Milking the corporate drama, the cameraman zooms in on the rival, asking if he can film the screaming match for the channel. With a death stare and total boss energy, the analyst steps up to the assistant manager and tells him his ego is way too massive. Completely shell-shocked by the rookie's lethal comeback, the executive mumbles in disbelief, literally unable to speak. Turning his back with absolute zero respect, the MC tells the rival straight to his face that arrogance is totally useless in the financial market. Walking away from the beef, he drops a sarcastic bomb, saying he also thought he was the main character of the universe when he was an edgy teen. To completely bury the guy, Yoon sarcastically pities that the executive's maturity patch seems to have downloaded a little too late. Meanwhile, up in the boardroom, Vice President Sim is glaring at the tournament spreadsheets looking dead serious. One of the directors rubs his chin, crying about the absolute lack of talent, and the boss agrees, noting the department sent over some absolute scrubs. Let down by the mid-tier roster, the advisor asks if there isn't at least one decent player, name-dropping Lee Changyi himself. Checking the assistant manager's stats, the VP remembers the guy is stationed in HQ's ultra-competitive investment banking division. The director hypes the candidate to the moon, claiming that rubbing elbows with the High Council gave him a flawless read on how Megacore operate. Studying the papers, the leader admits that assistant manager Lee is hands down the most op player in the lobby. Right then, one of the suits asks if this gimmick is actually going to farm views on YouTube. The marketing guy nods, sweating bullets, and promises the view count will explode if the edit is fire. Taking the floor, Vice President Sim reminds the room that this entire committee only exists because of Lee's pitch. Staring down the marketing kid, the big boss declares that the entire burden of going viral now rests squarely on his shoulders. Breaking the suffocating tension, a voice announces the next player is walking in to face the boardroom bosses. The suits watch the rookie walk in with insanely judgmental and hawk-like stares. Stopping right in front of the judge's table, the MC drops a good morning and introduces himself as a clerk from the Seongnam branch. Spotting the kid instantly, the VP gives a tiny smirk and says it's been a minute since they last crossed paths. Keeping his manners flawless, Yoon says he's been doing great thanks to the executive's backup. Loving the formal vibe, the boss mentions manager Ryu couldn't stop hyping up the kid's god-tier grind at the agency. Stunned by the random flex, the worker just nods and gives a polite bow. Watching from the sidelines, two suits whisper in total jealousy about some supposed secret alliance between the two. Triggered by the obvious nepotism for a basic clerk, one of them orders a deep dive into whatever the hell is going on at that branch. The suit assumes the kid must be hiding some insane cheat code to get that much love from the board. Snapping back to the interrogation, the head of accounts introduces himself formally and gives a thumbs up to the kid's picks. But the judge cuts to the chase, demanding to know why there isn't a single tech company on his roster. Laying out his master plan, the MC explains the global market is bleeding out from inflation and a brutal spike in interest rates. Checking the sheet, the judge agrees and notes the kid went all in on boomer economy stocks, dropping cash on oil, steel, and retail. Totally chill under the cross-examination, the young guy confirms his entire strat is built around the current meta of the global economy. He breaks it down, saying the infinite money glitch pumped up tech stocks, but right now, the classic economy is about to take over the lobby. Expanding his theory, the kid points out that the massive spike in commodity prices is dragging these ancient corporations straight to the top. But another director interrupts, demanding to know why he threw construction into a portfolio during such a trash economy. Basic logic says expensive loans completely nuke mega residential building projects nationwide. Not even flinching, Yoon fires back, revealing his bet is locked strictly onto industrial engineering construction, not basic housing. Catching the big brain move, the judge realizes that sky-high oil prices are going to trigger a massive demand for brand new factories. The MC nods, confirming the judge's read was absolute perfection. Dropping bonus lore, the kid lets it slip that the contractor is about to ink a multi-billion-dollar deal over in Asia. Smelling the blood in the water, foreign megacore already spotted the hidden play and started buying up the stock like maniacs. Watching the debate in silence, Vice President Sim nods with a smirk, loving the kid's lethal and precise comebacks. Grabbing the mic, Director Seo thinks out loud about the kid's unshakable faith in the boomer economy's comeback. But the judge spots a massive plot hole, pointing out that the most expensive buy on the roster totally breaks that rule. The sheer weight of that apparent fail makes the VP snap his confused eyes right onto the kid's spreadsheet. Staring the kid down, the judge drops a nuke, asking if it isn't insanely suicidal to bet on semiconductor tech right now. The boss reminds everyone that those factories mass-produced chips during the pandemic and are now choking on a disaster of unsold inventory. Feeling the absolute crushing pressure, the MC tells himself that this specific director's questions always aim straight for the jugular. In a flash, the kid's brain rewinds all the way back to his very first interview for the company. Way back then, that exact same boss demanded to know how he would actually act when face-to-face with clients. The executive wanted to know if he'd bait them with fake moonshot promises, or if he'd step up as a guide through the nightmare of the market. Snapping back to the current boss fight, the worker fixes his posture, keeping the exact same ice-cold confidence from before. Breaking the silence, Yoon loudly declares that it is literally impossible to predict the future with 100% accuracy. Keeping it brutally real about the job, the young guy swears his actual mission is to grind and boost the odds of making a profit. The hardcore mature reality check leaves the main judge momentarily stunned and completely out of ammo. But the kid flips the script in a second, announcing that there actually is one single thing he can guarantee with absolute certainty. The guy swears his confidence comes purely from his hardcore analytics, promising to always fight in the trenches right next to the investor. Dropping a metaphor, he compares himself to a captain steering a ship through a brutal hurricane, finding the best route in the chaos. The kid declares he'd rather feed them the ugly, uncertain truth than some sweet, comforting lie, aiming to be a true partner. Closing out his ethical flex, the guy proudly announces that this exact transparent manager profile is exactly who he is trying to be. The panel of bosses listens to the absolute cinema of a speech in dead silence, feeling the weight of every single word. Pivoting back to the stock problem, Yoon drops two highly technical reasons why the company has plot armor against the market crash. With sniper precision, the analyst points out the corporation's real trump card is selling next-gen hardware on a massive scale. Hearing the telecom shoutout, the VP crosses his arms, totally catching on to the tech master plan. Yoon explains that leaving lockdown tanked home tech sales, but the entire planet still desperately needs chips for infrastructure. The whole globe is in a mad dash to upgrade networks, spamming new cell towers nonstop to guarantee god-tier connection speeds. With quarantine over, the masses hit the streets demanding ultra-fast mobile data literally everywhere they go. The kid deploys his secret weapon, leaking that the company is the apex predator in the sector and is already in shadow talks with America's biggest telecom provider. Moving to his second point, he decides to absolutely nuke the terrifying myth about factories overproducing chips. The worker exposes the massive chance that this entire too many chips doom posting is just one colossal fake-out. Dropping the raw data, the young guy proves the surplus only happened in low-tier Chinese chip factories. But since the tech barrier is insanely high, that garbage inventory only affects trash-tier parts, leaving the elite hardware completely untouched. From that, he pulls off a genius conclusion that the premium memory market is going to stay totally invincible and print money. Blown away by the insane level of research, director Seo thanks him for the breakdown while furiously scribbling notes on his clipboard. Hyped beyond belief, the VP thinks to himself that the kid's comeback was a literal masterclass on the global economy. Taking over the table, the executive announces they are totally out of questions and politely dismisses the kid from the hot seat. The MC stands up and gives a deep bow of respect, super grateful he finally got to flex his true power level in that room. The second the kid turns his back and walks to the door, the leader's calculating eyes track his every single move. Flashing a tiny smirk, the boss whispers the kid's name, 100% sure he just found the ultra-rare drop he's been hunting for. Hours later, crammed in a packed subway, the absolute exhaustion of the day finally knocks the MC out on his way home. Standing right next to him, some random guy sighs and complains that the stock market has been a massive letdown lately. Scrolling his phone, the dude whines that finance YouTube has gotten super boring and just recycles the same trash takes over and over. But then, he stumbles on a brand new video with clickbait about a trading war between corporate pros at a brokerage. Hooked by the corporate deathmatch vibe, the passenger clicks the video to see who these supposed local geniuses are. The screen cuts to the exact moment Yoon locks in his wild bet on a sketchy market while the cameras roll. Absolutely floored, the guy thinks the kid has completely lost his mind betting on that, especially since he's just a front desk scrub. But when the edit shows the assistant manager's pick, the guy instantly agrees, hyping up the totally safe bet on the naval sector. Back in the bullpen after the interrogation, the arrogant Lee Chang-yi struts up to coworker Yeonjae acting like a god, asking if she's doubting her own skills. Keeping it toxic, the suit asks if the only reason she bought Hanseong shipbuilding stock was because of his god-tier recommendation. Watching the cringe play out from afar, Yoon literally has to choke back a laugh at the rival's bloated ego and absolute lack of boundaries. Outside the war zone, the marketing squad is watching the raw footage totally mind-blown by the reality TV-level beef, plotting to upload it to the web. Super hyped, the rookie grabs his manager's attention, swearing they just struck a gold mine with these clips. Keeping his boss persona intact, the marketing manager tells the kid to chill out and sit back down. Checking the analytics, the leader remembers grinding for 2 years just to hit 10K subs, celebrating that video one already pulled in 2,000 more. The rookie hypes the massive W, saying the finance bros are going absolute goblin mode in the comments, begging for part 2 to drop ASAP. Processing the insane stats, the manager stays quiet, realizing the absolute golden goose the bosses just handed them. Keeping the content farm running, the superior double-checks that the teaser confirming part 2 drops today is already live. Cooking up a clickbait strat, the leader orders his assistant to clip the exact frame of VP Sim looking shocked at Yoon and upload it as a short. Peaking on hype, the rookie's eyes bug out when he remembers his side quest was to dig up the MC's hidden lore. Switching to a dead serious tone, the worker warns that the front desk clerk's backstory is way more insane than anyone guessed. He spills that the kid literally predicted that legendary foreign trading glitch and told an investor to buy the dip. Ending the story with a bang, the assistant swears the client trusted the insane call and made a disgusting amount of cash in record time. Completely shell-shocked by the lore, the marketing boss demands to know if this crazy story is backed by legit sources. The rookie swears on his life he verified it with 2 workers from the Seongnam branch and warns that the entire office won't shut up about it. Smelling the viral view count, the boss rubs his chin and decides on the spot that it's time to take the channel to the next level. The manager orders the squad to pack their gear and head to the branch to shoot interviews with the crew to find out who the MC really is. With a totally greedy corporate smile, the superior announces Episode 3 is going to be a full deep dive into the mysterious rise of the lowly clerk. The next day, the mile-long line at the corporate food court proves that lunch at HQ is always an absolute zoo. Already parked at a table with his food, Yoon notices his analyst partner sparking up a chat. Sitting across from him, Yeonjae stealthily points to the far end of the cafeteria, saying she desperately needs to spill some tea about the assistant manager. She gossips that she heard rumors the snobby rival manipulated another player into dumping a stock mid-tournament. Speed-checking his phone, the young guy connects the dots and realizes this shady play went down super early that morning. The veteran explains she thought it was sketchy as hell because she checked the live leaderboard and saw the rival dump the stock before even turning a profit. Making it even weirder, she says the company the guy rejected instantly nosedived right after, dragged down by a sector-wide crash. Putting it all together, the MC realizes the rich rival's market prediction was actually flawless. Annoyed by the toxic play, Yeonjae asks why the hell Lee is meddling in other people's trades in the middle of a tournament for a promotion. She crosses her arms and groans about how much she hates control freaks, while the rival is busy flexing and laughing with his fanboys at a distant table. Pivoting the chat, Yeonjae gives mad props to the genius game plan the MC cooked up for the event. Flashing a friendly smile, she says he spent the entire time looking like he was locked into a super intense and mysterious puzzle. The analyst confesses her own picks are super basic, deciding to just dump cash into clothing brands and coffee chains she actually goes to. Blown away by how honest her logic is, the young guy hypes her up, pointing out that is the exact definition of finding authentic value investing. Brushing off the praise, the veteran admits the daily grind at HQ is so soul-crushing she only entered the tournament to get a break from actual work. Understanding the brutal corporate burnout, the kid gets serious and asks if she plans to diamond hand those same stocks until the finale. The chat gets violently interrupted when assistant manager Lee rolls up and slams his hand on the kid's chair with maximum arrogance. The suit tries to tilt his opponent, claiming that if it wasn't for the kid's garbage semiconductor bet, second place would already be his. Without breaking eye contact, the young guy stares the rival down, showing zero fear of the cheap trash talk. The preppy guy gets sarcastic, reminding him that tech stocks took another massive L today and brutally suggests the kid liquidate everything tomorrow before the company goes bankrupt. Walking away, thrilled with his own roast, Lee advises the clerk to keep holding his naval stocks if he wants to have a single penny left at the end. Without even shifting his tone, the MC just tells the arrogant rival to have a great shift, totally ignoring the disrespect. Furious at the guy's absolute audacity, the researcher loses it and complains about his childish stunt right in the middle of the cafeteria. But Yoon just flashes a confident, evil little smirk, claiming that destroying a guy that annoying at the finish line is going to taste infinitely sweeter. Shook by the kid's unbreakable mental game, the woman's eyes go wide, slightly amazed by how ice-cold he is. The kid's focus is shattered by his phone vibrating aggressively on the table. Asking his coworker for a sec, the analyst grabs his phone to see who the hell is texting him right now. The screen shows his boy Choi Woo-jin asking in a total panic if that suicidal chip bet is actually going to work out. Typing back, the MC realizes his buddy all the way in Seongnam also caught the panic virus from the crashing charts. He chills his friend out, texting back that he is 100% locked in on the play, since he audited the company's foundation until his eyes bled. Reading the reply, Yoon gets a jump scare finding out even the ultra-strict manager Ryu was snooping around his buddy to see if the tech theory was holding up. The notifications keep popping, and Choi says the entire branch and all the boomer clients are watching and praying for his absolute victory in the tournament. Spamming a hyped-up sticker, the superior demands his buddy bring the trophy home, pulling a genuine smile and a huge thanks from the kid. Spotting the good vibes, the researcher asks if it was good news, and he warmly says the squad from his old branch was sending him energy. With his heart melting over his team's loyalty, the worker puts his phone down and promises to go totally try hard so he doesn't let anyone down. But then the phone buzzes again. Scratching his chin, he looks confused, wondering if Assistant Choi forgot to drop some more lore. But the glowing alert on the screen reveals the mystery app decided to crash the party once again. The text says the kid's god-tier vision made the program super happy and announces a bonus by leveling up his user account. Completely lost on the digital upgrade, the young guy stares at his phone, having zero clue what buffs this level up actually gives him. Solving the riddle, the app says the algorithm was tweaked to help him hit his goals and drops an insanely detailed leak about the future of Yuseong semiconductors. The kid's jaw hits the floor when a red alert flashes on the software, revealing the massive Hanseong shipbuilding just got tagged as a maximum risk asset. Cutting to the video crew's studio, the director tells the editor to hit record before they roll the next batch of interviews for the series. Chilling in the chair with a mic, Yoon politely greets the crew and waits for the next round of questions. Trying to keep the vibe casual, the interviewer mentions it's been a hot minute since their last one-on-one chat. The analyst nods calmly, confirming he's been dodging the camera lenses for a few weeks. Laughing at the chaos, the YouTube guy jokes that their first chat felt more like a hostage situation because of all the drama the other players caused. Switching to a dead serious tone, the interviewer stops stalling and demands the kid explain what massive disaster just hit the market. Keeping his trademark poker face, the worker just drops the name of the mighty Hanseong shipbuilding. Rewinding to the start of the apocalypse, the story jumps back exactly 1 week, right into the crowded tournament hall. Back then, the MC was locked in at his desk, analyzing the screen charts when his phone alert guaranteed the total destruction of the naval sector. Staring at the insane warning, he couldn't wrap his head around how a mega corporation like that was about to go bankrupt on the market. Trapped in his own head, the young guy remembered the only other time the system screamed danger like this was when it exposed the Jaeon system scam. Staring at the monitor's glow, he instantly decided a crime of that scale would never happen in a massive shipbuilding titan. Flexing his massive market knowledge, the worker remembered the company almost died once, but got bailout out by a colossal injection of government cash because it was too big to fail. Because of that, the kid was absolutely certain the company was under hardcore government surveillance, just waiting for the chance to be sold off debt-free. As a result, the official audits on their money were way more brutal than any other corporation out there. Running the scenario, he figures there has to be some doomsday news about to drop. But the kid thinks it's super weird since the buy and sell orders look flawless, with the government pension fund itself buying massive bags. Since the stock looks totally stable, he decides to hunt for outside reasons and start surfing the web. Reading articles about the Korean naval market beefing with China, the analyst gets spooked and starts connecting the dots. Normally, he would have trashed this news, but with the app screaming in his face, he literally couldn't ignore the data. Right on cue, assistant manager Lice swaggers into the room with his usual god complex. Walking past his enemy's cubicle, the suit gets sarcastic, asking if cramming at this stage of the game is even going to do anything. The MC just turns his head and replies politely, waiting for the guy to finish talking. The rival clarifies he's talking about the naval constructor and asks what the point of researching it now is. Leaning on the cubicle wall, the superior mocks him, saying the kid won't find answers just staring at a front desk monitor. Overflowing with ego, he repeats his sarcastic tip for the young guy to keep holding his stocks. Unfazed by the trolling, the guy calls his rival by his name using a totally ice-cold tone. Grabbing his veteran colleague's attention, he deflects the taunt, claiming the man doesn't usually bother investigating companies after he buys them. Locked onto the computer, the analyst swears he double-checks his bets multiple times a day, always terrified he made a stupid mistake. Through that endless paranoia and hardcore research, he declares he actually builds real confidence in his investments. The executive's face turns sour, furious at hearing his opponent repeat that a massive ego is an investor's absolute worst flaw. Going back to his keyboard, the young guy warns there's still time to fix mistakes, instead of wasting time standing there being sarcastic. Recommending the opponent burn that energy auditing his own portfolio a little more carefully. Absolutely triggered by the lecture, Lee tries to clap back and calls the kid by his name. All this toxic energy grabs the attention of the camera guy, who is busy recording the players. Spotting the lens, the superior hides his panic by fixing his tie and sarcastically asks if betting on chips was the result of all that hardcore research. Turning around with total swagger, he advises the clerk to keep grinding hard on those garbage theories. The second the suit walks away, the researcher peeks over the glass divider. Mind blown by the kid's lines, she asks why he took so much abuse in silence when he's that deadly with words. Stretching out, the young guy admits he thought it was a waste of time, but agrees the dude definitely crossed the line this time. Super hyped, the coworker cheers the kid on to keep destroying the rival, pissed off that the guy thinks he's always right. Packing up to clock out, she looks at the cameraman praying he caught the entire boss fight for the YouTube video. The next day, the sun lights up the massive brokerage building again. Rolling up to her desk, the researcher says good morning, but stops mid-sentence when she sees how absolutely wrecked her partner looks. Spooked by the massive dark circles under the kid's eyes, she greets him and demands to know what the hell happened to him. Exhausted, the worker just mumbles that he spent the entire night lost in some really heavy thinking. Playing support, the veteran offers him a cup of coffee, but the kid says thanks and mentions he already grabbed one. Sitting down, she guesses that because of the grind, he probably didn't even notice the tournament video already dropped. The MC denies it, firmly stating he'd rather not watch any of the corporate channel's content. He explains that watching himself on screen would make him die of cringe, forcing him to act like a totally fake robot on camera. The woman crosses her arms and sharply points out that the guy who should actually be dying of cringe is standing right over there. She points at the assistant manager getting swarmed by his fanboys, saying the internet hype just inflated the dude's ego even more. Glaring at the scoreboard that shows the suit in first place, the researcher jokes that she'd love to just delete his name from the top spot. Changing the subject, she hypes the kid up, telling him he just went viral among the tech investors. The kid blinks in shock, unable to process how his losing bet somehow got good reviews. The woman explains the market is terrified of the losses, packed with panicking investors who literally refuse to take the. Because of that, his hyped-up take in the video acted as copium for the masses, making his coworker genuinely happy about his impact. The gossip gets cut off when the admins march into the office clapping their hands to start the day. The tournament boss yells that anyone who wants to liquidate their stocks, this session needs to hand in their paperwork right now. In a matter of seconds, a bunch of suits rush the admin desk, dropping off their trade sheets. Walking up to the boss, the MC hands over his form, while the leader makes a comment about his naval sector pick. The second his eyes hit the kid's paper, the man stammers in absolute shock and asks for a second to verify the data. Keeping a totally chill face, the analyst confirms his choice and politely asks what's wrong with the order. The supervisor points a shaking finger at the paper, trying to make sure he seriously wants to dump that asset. Without hesitating for a single second, the rookie confirms the unbelievable sell order. Raising his voice so the whole room hears it, he declares the total liquidation of every single naval share he owns. The room turns into a chaotic mess of shocked whispers, with players blown away by the absolute madness of throwing away the best company in the game. Shattering the tense vibe, the assistant manager's obnoxious, sarcastic laugh echoes through the room. Walking right up to his enemy, the executive finds the whole thing hilarious and brings up the lecture about having a massive ego. Dripping with sarcasm, he asks if his trolling from yesterday hurt the kid's fragile pride so much that it forced him to panic sell. The suit forces the joke, swearing the worker made this extreme move purely out of a childish temper tantrum. Thrown off by the baseless accusation, the MC scrunches his face in total confusion and asks what the hell the guy is talking about. Completely ignoring the opponent's clown show, the young guy turns his back and calmly sits back down at his desk. The researcher leans over, finding the kid's total lack of care hilarious, but quickly notices something weird about his vibe. She repeats his confused comeback, trying to figure out how he stays so ice-cold during a roast session. The kid raises an eyebrow, asking if he really looked that bored, and the woman swears he looked absolutely destroyed that morning. Flashing a polite smile, she praises his hardcore move, but asks what would happen if the company's price skyrocketed even more today. Resting his face on his hand, the young guy declares that if that happens, it just means his theory was trash from day one. Checking the chart with the bag already secured in his account, he says he's completely happy with the profits he squeezed out of the trade. The digital clock ticks down to 8:30, revving the engines for the official market open. Buried in the charts, the MC tracks the data while typing furiously on his PC. Through the glass, the veteran is sweating bullets, noticing that the amount of sell orders for the constructor is insanely high. Locked on the screen, the analyst points out it's totally normal to see heavy market manipulation in the minutes before the bell rings. As the seconds drag by, he tells his partner to chill her anxiety and not jump to any crazy conclusions until the last second. The stock exchange clock finally strikes 9 exactly, launching the brutal opening of the financial market. In the blink of an eye, the monitors are hijacked by red boxes screaming desperately about the naval company being in the danger zone. The corpse chart starts violently shaking in an absolute bloodbath between buyers and sellers. But the war ends fast when a massive blue bar craters, tearing through the screen in a total price meltdown. The shock freezes the kid's face as he watches the money evaporate, proving his gut feeling was absolutely flawless. Staring at the crashing screen, the researcher realizes the state fund is dumping everything and asks if he saw this coming. Since the kid denies it, the girl is totally lost on where he even got the idea the price would tank. Explaining his logic, Yoon says the stock pumped way too hard yesterday, so he figured it was smarter to dump it all and secure the bag. Absolutely mind-blown by his perfect timing, the woman asks if he was just born with this cheat code. He takes the compliment with a humble smile, while she jokes that pretty soon he'll be more arrogant than the executive. Focused on the PC, the young guy notes the freefall stopped and points out the company still hasn't dropped an official press release. Sketchy about the silence, the kid secretly figures that if there was a real crisis, the corp would have definitely spoken up first thing in the morning. Time drags in the office as the morning session finally hits the finish line. When the break bell rings, Yeonjae asks her partner to go grab lunch. She asks why he's still sweating the constructor so hard if he already dumped all his shares. The analyst explains that the company is bleeding out while all its rivals are pumping, making it the perfect case study. His partner agrees that grinding for knowledge is cool, but insists they need to get food in their system first, finally convincing the kid. Suddenly, a scream of pure terror shatters the quiet trading room. Absolutely panicked, assistant manager Lei screams the naval company's name, pulling terrified looks from his coworkers. One of the bosses instantly gets pissed and tells him to shut up, saying he can already see the meltdown on his screen. Smelling the disaster, Yoon tells the woman to hold on a sec and sprints back to his desk. He instantly clicks to refresh the financial news portal. The shock hits him when the breaking headline drops that the massive 20-ship deal was violently cancelled. The corporation's value plunges into a death spiral right after the contract breach goes public. A multi-billion-dollar deal just vanished into thin air, completely vaporizing the company's net worth on the stock market. Realizing the tragedy is permanent, the MC announces the news is absolute garbage, while panic infects the entire office. Across the room, the arrogant executive is literally pulling his hair out, completely bankrupted by the destruction of his portfolio. Yoon coldly states the builder's situation is unfixable, and the analyst suggests they finally go eat. Feeling a massive wave of relief for dodging that nuke, the kid nods and follows his coworker. Even 2 whole days after the headline dropped, the cursed asset is still melting down with unrecoverable losses. On another shift, the rookie from the video crew rolls up to the analyst, asking how the hell he predicted the constructor's downfall. Keeping up the humble act, the kid gives an awkward smile and lies, saying it was just pure luck. But the interviewer shoots him down instantly, saying the cameras caught him stalking the company exactly 2 days before he dumped the stock. Busted by the investigation, the MC laughs awkwardly and rubs the back of his neck. Switching to a way more serious vibe, he decides to keep it real and expose his actual strat. He explains that whenever one of his assets pumps non-stop, a massive wave of anxiety takes over his brain. Showing off the files on his PC, the kid clarifies that even a tiny hiccup in the market immediately triggers his fight-or-flight mode. Processing the kid's paranoia, the producer asks if he managed to track down the root cause of that hidden turbulence. The analyst nods, declaring he finally decoded the danger signal the market was trying to send. Yoon breaks down that he read in a foreign paper that soaring material costs put the sector in the danger zone, since they couldn't beat China's prices. Based on that, he dug deeper and found out the Korean companies were getting absolutely crushed by client pressure. The tycoons buying the ships were demanding insane design changes, completely obliterating the profit margins of the contracts. Hooked on the lore, the worker asks if that ocean of red flags gave him the confidence to execute the sell. Catching the interviewer off guard, the young guy says nope, and explains the final trigger was simply the stock pumping for 3 days straight. In his brain, that totally illogical spike was the mathematical alarm screaming that it was already past time to abandon ship. The YouTube guy is blown away by the ice-cold logic, hyping the perfect combo of skill and RNG at the exact moment of the disaster. Pulling up the live leaderboard, the coworker points out the kid is sitting alone in first place and asks if he thinks the prize is locked. Unshakable, the MC confirms he does, but swears he won't take his foot off the gas until the absolute last second of the game. The marketing guy thinks the sudden burst of ego is hilarious, pointing out the analyst is usually way more humble when he speaks. Flashing a sly smile, Yoon justifies the flex by declaring he's still holding one massive trump card for the endgame. A new day breaks, lighting up the corporation's massive HQ. Rolling up to his desk full of energy, the young guy hits his partner with a friendly greeting. The woman immediately bombards him with questions, demanding to know how he cracked the case of the Maseong typo. Yeonjae explains that the story went super viral in episode 3, and now the entire company is obsessed with his massive brain. Being practical, the young guy argues that a tank company crashing out of nowhere with zero news could only be a system glitch. Stunned by how simple the answer is, the coworker asks if he seriously cooked up that logic right in the middle of absolute market chaos. He just shrugs and flashes a cocky smile, reminding her that at the end of the day, that's literally his day job. Sighing playfully, the analyst gives up on trying to keep up with his brain and admits she can't even act surprised by his god-tier predictions anymore. Changing the subject, she grabs her phone totally hyped and tells the kid to watch a short clip that just dropped. The screen plays the exact frame where the MC promises his bet on semiconductors would be the ultimate 5D chess move of the tournament. The woman tells him to read the comment section, blown away by the massive engagement from the internet crowd. The app shows an endless flood of comments from investors claiming they bought the stock purely because the young guy looked so confident. Reading the replies, the kid looks visibly stressed and can't figure out why these people just blindly followed his call. Laughing at the kid's innocence, the woman reminds him she already warned him about how desperate the tech investors were. She spells it out, saying the internet trusts him because every single one of his past calls has been absolutely flawless. The veteran points out it was obvious the internet would go feral over that clip and mentions the marketing guy absolutely loves farming drama. Curious about the endgame, she asks what the preppy suit is going to do if the stock goes to the moon, and wonders if her buddy has given up hope. The worker confesses that reading those comments made him realize the crushing weight of his choices, promising to be way more careful. Even with the stress of carrying that load, he drops a small smile and promises that at least he bet on the right chips. His partner wants to make sure he's actually that confident in the payout, and the kid swears without blinking that the prices are going to explode. Out of nowhere, a scream full of pure rage shatters their chill morning chat. Annoyed by the screaming, the veteran crosses her arms and asks if employees are banned from talking in the office now. Spitting venom, the assistant manager accuses them of acting like they own the place and tells them to shut their mouths. Not backing down, Yeonjae throws it right back in the suit's face that he was the loudest guy laughing in the room when he was winning. Totally stunned by the clapback, the loser takes a step back, unable to believe she just disrespected him like that. Taking the shot, the MC coldly warns him that the cameras are already rolling in the back of the room. Sweating from absolute cringe, the rival grinds his teeth and lets out a frustrated groan when he realizes his meltdown got caught in 4K. With zero options to save face, he whips around and demands they show a tiny bit of respect for the workspace. The coworker whispers that the idiot is only throwing a tantrum because the entire internet is roasting him alive in the comments. Yoon nods, remembering the guy literally told his audience to diamond hand the constructor stock, making thousands of people lose their life savings. The internet mob turns entirely against Executive Lee. The preppy guy is getting publicly executed online by furious shareholders who trusted his tip. Pissed off about their massive losses, the clients are demanding to know how he's going to pay them back for the wealth he destroyed in his trap. Right then, Yoon goes back to his PC to see how the tournament leaderboard is looking after the stock market bloodbath. The refreshed scoreboard shows the MC sitting alone like a boss in first place. Meanwhile, his rival has cratered all the way down to a pathetic 5th place. The heavy silence of the agency gets shattered when the kid's communication system pings, grabbing his attention instantly. The magic app drops a nuke, announcing that Yuseong Semiconductors just locked in a billion-dollar deal with the American telecom giant. Reading the god-tier news, the young guy overflows with confidence and silently celebrates his absolute domination at his monitor. Curious about her coworker's sudden hype, the researcher peeks over the glass, wanting to know if his crazy gamble actually paid off. The veteran stares at the charts in awe, realizing this monstrous deal just dragged every single tech stock straight to the moon. Backing up his partner, the young guy explains the industry just needed one reliable trigger to flip the entire losing streak. Hyped about the W, the girl points out everything played out exactly like the kid predicted in that controversial video clip. Keeping his ultra-professional vibe, he notes that this structural stability was always the company's ultimate hidden weapon. The kid explains the corp isn't just relying on making basic parts anymore, leveraging their god-tier tech to multiply their profits. Despite all his confidence, the analyst admits he never saw a contract of this insane magnitude coming. The brainstorm session gets cut off when two branch workers sneak up and call the kid's name looking super awkward. One of the guys rubs his neck looking deeply embarrassed and asks for a minute to pick the brain of the office's resident genius. The suit confesses he's panicking over his personal portfolio and begs the analyst to help him fix the whole thing. Riding the wave, the other worker steps up and desperately begs the kid to audit his stocks too whenever he has a sec. Watching the two guys humiliate themselves, Yeonjae crosses her arms, disgusted by the sheer audacity of the exact same squad that used to treat the kid like trash. Putting his ego and the old beef aside, the MC flexes his flawless ethics and dives into his coworkers' portfolios with total dedication. A little while later, the scene shifts to the massive HQ auditorium, where the tournament's finale party is finally kicking off. The host thanks every single analyst for sweating it out and announces the champion will be crowned right after a message from the board. Wasting no time, Vice President Sim walks to the mic, while the crowd cheers to give the High Council's take on the experimental program. Taking the mic, the boss swears he watched the genius grind of every single player through the channel's videos. Celebrating the massive internet hype, the executive joyfully announces the brokerage's platform just rocketed to number 2 in the entire country. The leader praises the honorable behavior of specific workers who upheld the company's ethical code on camera. Dropping a lethal subtweet at assistant manager Lei, the superior coldly notes that sadly some people just weren't built for the challenge. Cooling down the toxic vibe, the man tells everyone to drop the beef and keep grinding to the max for their squads. Nailing the finale of his speech, the vice president says thanks one more time, getting a standing ovation from the crowd. Getting back to the script, the host announces the moment everyone is waiting for is here, and the champion is about to get the gold medal. Hyping the crowd, the MC reads the stats and reveals the winner locked in an absolutely insane 30% profit margin. Yoon's name blasts through the fancy room speakers, officially crowning his absolute victory over the corporate elite. Swarmed by his shocked rivals, the young guy shakes hands with his coworkers while his partner Yeonjae loses her mind celebrating right next to him. Choking on his own shattered ego, the assistant manager lets out a sound of pure rage, totally disgusted by his embarrassing defeat on camera. Exactly 7 days after the event, the story cuts back to the chill vibe of the Seongnam branch, where the kid used to work the desk. Filming another laid-back video, the young guy tells the interviewer he took a few days of vacation to reset his brain. With a super friendly vibe, the kid says he spent his free time doing deep dive research and zeroing in on the companies he knows best. The marketing guy freezes when he hears the answer and jokes that a hardcore study grind is literally the exact opposite of relaxing. Not getting the joke at all, the analyst tilts his head, actually thinking what he did was totally normal. The reporter spells it out, saying people usually travel or sleep on their days off, making the kid nod and claim he totally went on a trip too. Bouncing back, he says he went on a tour checking out retail companies, following a tip from his analyst friend who is a god at that sector. The marketing guy connects the dots in a second and realizes the kid's trip was literally just a garbage excuse to do IRL market research. Completely embarrassed that he got exposed, the MC admits he's a finance addict, but defends himself saying he only had time to study because he wasn't clocked in. Blown away by the absolutely unhinged dedication, the reporter hypes him up and straight up declares that this exact grind set is what made him a champion. Dropping the perfect segue for the video, the guy asks the ultimate question, wanting to know if the winner's life changed massively after securing the bag. Hit with the perfect question, the kid stays quiet, trying to organize the absolute tsunami of events that just flipped his career upside down. Absolutely sure of himself and his moves, he answers straight up that his status in the corporation went through a tiny little update. Checking out the kid's slick clothes, the coworker notices the designer suit and spots a shiny gold pin clipped to the guy's chest. The camera zooms in hard on the fancy accessory, while the reporter admits he's literally never seen that badge anywhere in the company. Keeping the audience hooked, the video cuts away, showing the kid chilling in Vice President Sim's ultra-luxurious office. The veteran hands over 2 nomination letters, swearing the kid's god-tier performance proved he has what it takes to join any elite squad. Despite the massive flex, the young guy politely rejects the offers and hands the paperwork back, deeply thanking him for the vote of confidence. Packed with unbreakable morals, the MC explains he already took the elevator up with his career choice 100% locked in his head. Cutting back to the interview, the analyst kills the suspense about his new title and points right at the pin on his chest. With insane clarity, he explains the badge is strictly handed out to high-tier managers who have the ultimate green light to trade massive funds. Realizing how massive the promotion is, the producer sits up totally mesmerized and says he needs to milk every single detail of this crazy lore. The guy hypes up that the internet fans went absolutely feral after the finale, dying to know where their genius boy got drafted to. Taking on the challenge of controlling his own destiny, the analyst fixes his tie and drops the elite posture of a mega-wealth manager. Staring dead into the lens, he throws on a friendly face and politely greets the thousands of new subs following his run. Without stalling for a single second, he announces he's staying at the Seongnam branch and proudly introduces himself as the unit's most powerful private banker. Flashing back to the boardroom chat, the executive asks with total dad energy if the young prodigy is absolutely sure he isn't going to regret this. Holding on to the conviction that runs his life, the MC kills any doubt and swears his choice isn't going to change. The wise leader agrees with the kid's flawless logic, admitting that kicking off his career face-to-face with the public is the ultimate move. The older guy warns that jumping into a multi-billion-dollar fund would turn him into a basic NPC, taking orders from suits who are way worse than him. Wrapping up the advice, the boss notes that building a resume stacked with hardcore wins is going to be the kid's most lethal weapon, and the kid nods at the strat. The big shot ends the chat emphasizing that in the corporate trenches, real profit margins flex way harder than a fancy title at HQ. Understanding the grind of playing solo, Yoon swears to use the humble branch to build his empire and prove he's the real deal to the clients. Cutting back to the reality show, the reporter announces he's done with the main questions and asks the kid to drop a final message for the fans. Super grateful for the instant fame, the new manager looks right at the rig and gives a massive thanks from the bottom of his heart for the internet's love. Running his hand over the millionaire client's paperwork, the young guy swears he totally gets how terrifying it is to hand your life savings over to brokers. Exactly because he feels that weight, he vows to bleed over the research for every single stock and protect every person who walks through his agency's doors. Staring at the front doors of the branch that almost killed his dreams, the young guy promises to grind like crazy to become the ultimate safety net for anyone who's panicking. Bowing deeply to show maximum respect, the winner drops his most genuine thanks for all the backup he got during the financial war. Right after recording that absolute chills-inducing message, the director calls a wrap on the video, hyping up the god-tier quality of the footage. While tearing down the cameras, the coworker drops the best news of the day, revealing the series just blew up on the app and farmed 40,000 new subs. Officially taking the throne, manager Ryu Thwa calls the kid's name, practically overflowing with pride. The boss gives a massive thanks for all the blood the workers spilled for the corporation over the years. In the chill vibe of the room, the two top-tier pros keep the chat super friendly. Owning his own grind, Yoon agrees he went totally try-hard to earn that chair. Right then he pops open the drawer of his brand new desk and reveals an iconic item stashed inside. Gripping his manager badge, the MC swears this achievement isn't the endgame, it's just level 1 of his climb. Staring into the future, he vows to keep fighting with every ounce of his energy until he smashes his ultimate goal. Dropping the badge on the desk, the young guy declares his real boss rush in the business world has officially started. A little later, the vibe shifts to an official branch meeting, where the leader thanks the squad for sweating it out that shift. With the crew huddled around the table, Ryu warns he needs to drop some pretty toxic news on them. Not sugarcoating it, the boss says the current economy is absolute trash, and HQ is breathing down their necks harder than ever. He spills that the board mandated strict profit quotas for every single team and manager. But the manager chills everyone out, swearing he's going to carry the entire weight of that aggro solo while he runs the branch. Doubling down on the agency's morals, the boss orders the staff to keep putting the clients above their sales numbers. The team nods at the rule and shows mad respect for his hustle, wrapping the meeting with everyone feeling super united. As the room empties out, the superior asks the MC to hang back for a private one-on-one. The leader reminds him he's officially booting up as a manager and warns him about the hardcore targets for the next 6 months. Looking at the kid, the manager says the title puts a massive target on his back from the directors, but trusts he's going to drop god-tier numbers. For his final warning, Ryu begs him to never ever sell out his morals with the clients, even if corporate tries to break him. Taking the warning, the rookie agrees instantly and swears to keep those words locked in his brain. Far away from the branch, inside the company's massive HQ, Director Jeon Seung-yi is running an absolute nightmare of a meeting with the board. Scanning the stats, the suit screams, demanding to know which branch dropped the most pathetic numbers this month. A subordinate scrambles to answer, saying the Seongnam and Dongdaegu branches completely tanked and hit the bottom of the leaderboards. Furious at the stats, the director asks how a poster child agency managed to nuke their ranking so hard. Hunting for a scapegoat, he narrows his eyes and asks if the guy running that place is still going by the name Ryu Thwa. Confirming his guess, Jeon corners the subordinate, demanding to know if he actually grilled that incompetent manager. The boss accuses the worker of playing soft just because Ryu is a boomer veteran from HQ. Backed into a corner by the screaming room, team leader Kim gulps hard, completely terrified to talk back. Boiling with rage, Jeon barks that the guy's literally only job is to terrorize the agencies, not shoot the breeze with washed-up veterans. The director mocks the whole setup, sarcastically asking if Ryu still thinks he's the god of the elite squad. Cranking up the heat, the boss asks if the subordinate is more terrified of the washed-up boomer than he is of him. Pissed about bleeding cash, the director screams, demanding to know whose fault it is that the branch went into financial ruin the second Ryu showed up. Absolutely horrified, Kim caves to the boss's aggro and throws the entire problem squarely onto the Seongnam manager's back. But Jeon points his finger right in Kim's face and declares he's just as guilty for being a total pushover. Grabbing the room's attention, the leader drops a terrifying warning about the whole squad acting like total noobs. He announces that anyone who puts their buddies over profit margins can pack their bags and quit right now. Processing the mess, Jeon wonders if that bastard manager still thinks the VP is going to shield him from the chopping block. With a totally evil glare, the director swears he's going to put his enemy in the dirt for good. Snapping back to business, he orders Kim to speedrun the paperwork for an audit. The suit declares a ruthless sweep is going to hit the Seongnam branch next month. Terrified of getting fired, the subordinate nods and swears to have the docs ready before the deadline. Ending the horror show, Jeon reminds everyone that branch revenue literally pays for every single person in that room. Going full toxic, he makes it crystal clear that nobody is getting a single dime of bonus pay if those reports don't get buffed. At the suburban agency, Yoon Do-kyung takes a call at his brand new desk set up specifically for whales. With flawless posture, the young guy lets the investor know he is now the official shot caller for all his funds. On the phone, the client asks in a panic if he got handed off because his account is too small. Yoon kills that idea immediately, promising he only took over the account to give him insanely specialized, high-tier service. Digesting the polite flex, the guy lets out a massive sigh of relief, realizing he didn't get dumped. Keeping the charisma flowing, the analyst uses the client's official title to build that VIP connection. The MC swears the brokerage will move mountains to protect and buff the guy's cash. Loving the kid's vibe, the millionaire tells him to call immediately if the market even glitches a little bit. Yoon says the investor has a total green light to call him 24/7 and promises he'll personally squash any bugs. Wrapping up the super positive chat, the new manager carefully double-checks his whale portfolio on his screen. Thanking him for teaming up, the worker hangs up looking completely zen. Letting out a massive sigh, the young guy leans back in his chair and admits to himself that this new gig is going to be the ultimate boss fight. A knock on the door shatters the chill vibe, and the kid tells the guest to come in. The old boomer investor marches into the room complaining that he heard rumors about the young prodigy getting a massive promotion. The old guy pretends to be super salty and asks why the analyst didn't even have the decency to call and drop the lore himself. Jumping out of his chair, the kid spams apologies for dropping the ball and agrees that setting up a meet should have been easy. The boomer grumbles that he had a massive headache because he asked for the whale manager, and the staff tried to ship him off somewhere else. The old man says the staff lied to his face, claiming Yoon was only allowed to handle small fry savings. Flexing his absolute loyalty, the old man calls the squad a bunch of idiots for not realizing what investors actually want from a pro. Touched by the old man's hype and defense, the MC says a massive thanks, claiming his backup is an absolute game changer. Switching gears, the old man proudly brags that he even watched the company's YouTube videos. Super hyped about the tournament arc, the investor says he almost jumped out of his shoes watching the kid win and praises his insane grind. The analyst is incredibly thankful, giving mad props to the guy for actually taking the time to watch the clips while living a busy life. Dropping a little drink on the desk, the old man kills the small talk and decides to cut straight to the real business. Locked in on the market, Yoon asks, super intrigued, exactly how much cash the client is trying to throw around. The boomer points out that since the kid is officially a manager, his main quest is to vampire up massive funds for the brokerage. Showing real support, the client points at the kid's nameplate and celebrates him officially joining the High Roller Club. Using the opening, he brings up the promise about that massive pile of cash he wanted to lock down for his grandson's inheritance. Totally blowing the kid's mind, the client reveals he plans to hand over absolute control of that entire fortune to the analyst. The old man casually asks if a few $100 million would be a solid starter pack to get things rolling. Completely spooked by the sheer size of the bag, Yoon's eyes bug out and he admits that amount of cash is way too crazy for him to solo right off the bat. Not giving a single damn about the workers' panic attack, the old man roasts the company's stupidity for handing such a tiny budget to a literal genius. Shoving his bankbook forward, the man orders the kid to port all the money from the bank straight into his control. Grabbing the little book with absolute reverence, Yoon gives a massive thanks for the guy's unbreakable faith in him. But the second he reads the digits on the paper, the MC freezes in absolute shock and calls the client father out of pure respect. Finding the whole scene hilarious, the old man bursts out laughing and sarcastically asks if the bag is really that small. Sweating buckets from the anxiety, the manager holds up the book and clarifies he's having a heart attack over the 1,400,000,000 one sitting right there. The old man cracks up, declaring this is the first time he's ever seen a market pro complain about getting handed too much money. Being super chill, he tells the kid to just treat the massive bag as a basic retirement fund, promising the cash will give him massive clout at the brokerage. Sweating the man's safety, Yoon warns that a whale this huge really belongs at the elite HQ branch instead of the suburban agency. But the old man throws his hand up, instantly shooting the idea down, saying he could easily walk into the veteran's office if he wanted to. Finishing his thought with total chill, he points out the elite squad's biggest flaw is that his favorite analyst doesn't work there. Holding up 2 fingers, the investor drops some boomer wisdom, saying that getting old made him realize only 2 things level up inside him. Number 1 is his insane stubbornness to do everything exactly his own way. And number 2 is his god-tier radar for sniffing out massive prodigies the second he meets them. Beating his chest like a boss, the man admits people think he's a dinosaur, but that exact attitude is what built his entire empire. Pointing right at his own eyes, he declares with absolute certainty that this same talent guarantees the kid is leagues above any suit in the market. Without a single ounce of doubt, the millionaire announces he is dropping his retirement and family inheritance right into the kid's lap, giving him the green light to invest it wherever he wants. The MC jumps out of his chair, finally realizing the absolute god-level power this guy was hiding, calling him president with massive respect. Overflowing with gratitude, Yoon drops a maximum respect bow to say thanks for the god-tier opportunity. With a face absolutely locked in determination, he swears he will play a flawless game to multiply the bag, ensuring the old man's family never has to worry about money again. The president gives the young guy a friendly pat on the arm, hyping up his gutsy attitude and saying he loves seeing him hyped like that. But then the boomer trolls the kid, asking if the fancy new title change only happened because he dropped the massive bag on him. Totally embarrassed by the playful roast, the worker scratches his head and lets out a nervous laugh. Back to being solo in his office chair, the MC thinks about the literal mountain of cash he just took control of. Staring at the little notebook, he understands that insane money means astronomical risks, plus the massive duty of not failing the guy who basically adopted him in the market. Out of nowhere, the phone screen lights up with a VIP system alert telling him to buy Du Minwon, making the young guy paranoid that the app is secretly spying on him 24/7. The analyst admits the tip dropped at the perfect time, but grumbles that the program ghosted him on the actual technical reasons for the spike again. Dropping the phone on the desk, he realizes he has zero choice but to hunt down the hidden lore using his own skills. To crack the case, the young guy braces his brain to deep dive into the financial reports of Du and Minwon. The next day, the chill vibe of the room gets shattered when Choi rolls up joking around and hyping his buddy for the disgusting amount of money he just pulled in. Spooked by the weirdly affectionate nickname, Yoon stops typing and repeats the word, totally lost. The assistant argues the rookie is about to become the absolute king of the branch, but the MC shoots the praise down and begs his buddy to drop it. Breaking the ice, the partner mentions he heard the lore about the young guy locking down a colossal fund with the president who showed up yesterday. Then the boss sits right next to him and jokes that if the rookie is already smashing records on day one, the boomers are going to starve by the end of the month. Loving the kid's massive W, Choi hypes the tycoon's guts and says a heavyweight like that never bets on a losing horse. Flashing a totally genuine smile, the analyst confirms he is insanely grateful for the shot. Wasting no time, the assistant leans in and asks if the young guy has been stalking any promising stocks on the terminal. Shuffling his papers, Yoon calmly replies he just burned hours auditing the DU holding company. The coworker is absolutely floored by the intel and asks what the logic is behind auditing them, considering their president is about to get locked up in prison. The guy explains the corporation got absolutely nuked by fraud and embezzlement lawsuits thanks to the family running it, putting a massive target on their back from the feds. With the news blasting them, the company's value, which was sitting at 20,000 won, nosedived to a pathetic 8,000, basically freezing all trades. Questioning the strat, Choi asks if the freefall was the only bait, but instantly realizes his partner always has a massive 5D chess move hiding up his sleeve. The MC hands over a printed chart and politely tells his buddy to look real close at the numbers. Scanning the document, the coworker mutters that the chart is nothing but LS, but suddenly spots a totally random glitch right in the middle of the line. Jamming his finger onto a massive red spike, the superior asks, totally confused, what the hell would trigger such an insane wave of buying and selling. Locked on the monitor, Yoon explains that over 5 million shares got dumped onto the market, but apparently some whale saw the attack coming and bought the entire dip. Mind blown by the billions of won moving around, the assistant asks if any media outlet caught the shadow trade. The MC confirms it, explaining the massive Eastern fund rage quit and dumped their bags, tanking the company even harder. Connecting the clues, Choi realizes the foreigner's bylaid and asks if another megacorp swept up the entire lot. Watching the ticker, Yoon confirms and drops the lore that Steel Life bought the whole package and got forced to dox the trade because they accidentally bought over 5% of the entire company. The coworker notices the company tried to play it cool by claiming it was just a casual investment, but admits he's literally never heard of that fund in his life. The young guy admits he had no clue who they were either, so he went digging on the web and found a totally unhinged article. Hooked by the leak, the veteran demands the lore, and the analyst fires back asking if he remembers the total annihilation of the Ujiro company over in Japan. The guy says it'd be impossible to delete that from his brain, since it was an absolute masterclass heist pulled off by the terrifying Carl Sutton. Breaking down the dark strat, the young guy reveals that during that brutal raid on the Japanese Chemical Corp, the legendary investor wasn't playing solo and had a shadow partner backing him up. Pure terror takes over the assistant's face the second he realizes the sinister connection to the Steel Life Fund, and the MC flat-out declares that foreign group has now locked onto the DU constructor as their next victim. Wrapping up the terrifying logic of his financial deep dive, Yoon decrees these suits aren't playing games, warning that the national company is about to get hit with a ruthless attack from corporate raiders.